I'd like to welcome everyone out this evening. Grateful to have a full house tonight. So as you are well aware, this is a special city council meeting. The date is August 26, 2024, and it is 6 o'clock p.m. So this is a special city council meeting for the purpose of receiving public comments concerning downtown parking. So that is the only thing on our agenda tonight, is talking about the parking meters, the implementation that occurred a few months back on that in our downtown, to receive feedback from the public. So we're grateful for the wonderful advertising that we had out there, to make sure that we had awareness in the community. I want to express my appreciation to our staff, Steve Jenkins, Ophelia Morales, especially for visiting so many of the business owners downtown and spreading the word in that regards, and many other people that were involved in that. So I want to thank you for all of that. So before we do begin, I do have just a statement I do want to read, and then we'll allow for our city council members, if they do wish to have a statement as well, before we proceed with staff presentation, then turning basically the rest of the time over to each and every one of you that wishes to speak tonight. So it says, the primary purpose of this special city council meeting is to afford the city council the opportunity to receive input from the general public regarding the implementation of the downtown parking meters. The purpose of the following rules of decorum for this meeting are to assure an orderly framework within which the business at hand can be conducted by setting basic ground rules for public speaking at this city council meeting, the distribution of information, and prohibiting inappropriate behavior. Communicating civilly becomes the most effective methodology to address these concerns. Persons wishing to speak this evening are required to sign the sheet located at the main city council chamber doors, as you hopefully saw that as you came in, listing your full name and address. If you did not have the chance to do so but wish to speak, please make sure or make your way to the table located just outside of these doors in the back of the room. If you could put in your name and address in those sheets that are provided, we would appreciate that. When you are provided your opportunity to speak, please come to the podium to address the council and state your full name and address for the purpose of accurately recording the minutes. Public comment is intended to give those in attendance an opportunity to address all items on the agenda. It is not intended to be a question and answer period or a town meeting format. The City Council's response to public input at this meeting is at their discretion. It is the intent to provide each participant a fair and equal opportunity to be heard. Each person testifying is asked to avoid repetitive comments and to not stray from the current issue at hand. Each person providing comment will be limited to one opportunity to speak during the meeting and not to exceed 5 minutes. This is to allow all those that wish to speak tonight the opportunity to do so. At the end of your time, you will hear an alarm. If you have not ended speaking, you will be allowed an additional 10 seconds to finish your final comment before sitting down. We kindly request your assistance in abiding by this rule to ensure adequate time for everyone to speak their desires. As you can see, we do have a full house tonight, so we want to make sure that we allow everybody that opportunity. The mayor, the city council members, and the public are expected to conduct themselves with civility and to afford each other a measure of dignity and respect. Shouting, cheering, booing, clapping, any personal insults and attacks, or any other conduct that disrupts the flow of business will not be tolerated. Members of the public are to direct their comments to the City Council in its entirety. They should not single out City Council members for response. In addition, members of the community should not applaud or engage in any actions that would impede another community member's right to make comments at this meeting. Individuals who are repeatedly disruptive shall be subject to removal from the meeting unless the disruptive individual agrees to maintain civility and decorum. If the body as a whole is repeatedly disruptive by cheering, booing, or clapping, the meeting will be recessed for a short period of time to allow for the calmness to be restored. If the body persists in disruptive behavior, the meeting will then be continued to a future date. I ask that we all encourage each other to abide by these guidelines and allow the proper decorum to be maintained so as to have a productive and successful meeting. Your opinions matter, and these standards are put in place to ensure everyone has an equal and fair chance to be heard. And lastly, I would ask that we remember that what is at hand tonight is to provide the City Council with pertinent information in regards to the best direction for our city. Many of us may have different beliefs and opinions in what the best path forward is, and that is all right. This meeting should not be used as an us against them mentality or trying to prove our thoughts or ideas are better than anyone else's. This is not about any one of us individually, but what is best for our community and for our downtown. Please let that be the driving factor behind what is spoken tonight. I appreciate everyone in allowing me to read that. And again, by abiding by those precepts and concepts, I think will allow for a great meeting tonight and very productive meeting for everyone. So with that, if there are any statements or comments from the City Council, we'll move into that.
I have one.
Okay. Councilor Register.
I just want to, let me pull that forward. Thank everybody for being here tonight. I know this has been kind of a hot topic everywhere. I do have a statement that I want to read. It's more maybe directed at council. It's a little bit long, but I appreciate you giving me the time and the voice to be able to do this. I do want to make a statement that addresses the council. I know we're going to hear from all of you soon, and I think that some of the things that I have to say right now are extremely important for us to know before we move any more forward. I truly believe that one of our jobs that the community has entrusted us to do is to make sure the projects that the city enters into make sense. This includes a well-thought-out, balanced, attainable long-term plan, the support of the community as much as possible, truthful and accurate information to vote on, and fiscal responsibility. After we were told that the current parking meter project was going to create a loss for the city and the taxpayer, I took on the challenge of really looking into this project from the beginning to see how we got from what we were told last year to where we are now, and what information we ended up with that was different. So I think it's important for you all to know all of this tonight, to see if we should be moving forward or putting a pause on this project, and especially you should know this before we vote in October. I think it'll also give the community a better understanding on why the council initially supported this. I want to point out that I don't know where all the incorrect information came from. I have asked both the mayor's office and the legal department at the beginning of August. I sent many emails. It's been 21 days and I haven't received a response. So now I have no choice but to ask the questions here. Last year, we were given the task of solving the downtown parking problem, and at the time, meters sounded like the best fit. They were something that could be done efficiently, feasibly, quickly, and on top of it, the city was told that we would be making a decent revenue to reinvest in the downtown. We were also told that the agreement with Car Park would be short-term, variable, and we could make changes as we go depending on the needs of the downtown and the community. We were told no less than 3 times at the October 17th City Council meeting that the projected revenue on the meters would be $613,000 a year. That was after all of the costs and all of the fees associated with the project were met. We were told that the profit would be reinvested into the downtown so that we would not have to use the taxpayer dollar on the meter. We were told that the agreement we were entering into on October 17th was to, quote, effectuate another agreement that would come before council within 90 days. We were told that the nuts and bolts still needed to be worked out to the point where we would still even have to figure out what kind of meters to use. We were told that this agreement was simply to let Car Park move forward, but we were essentially, quote, approving an agreement to implement another agreement we didn't have at the time, but we would within 90 days. On August 9th of 2024, I confirmed with city staff that the mayor's office had not received a parking management plan to complete that resolution on October 17th. This concerns me greatly and makes me wonder if that second part of the agreement was never received. Are we even in any kind of agreement with the car park at all? In October, at that same meeting, we were told that there would be a parking compliance officer employed by the city that would act as the manager as outlined in the agreement. This manager would have the authority to make day-to-day decisions and be in constant contact with the car park, acting as a liaison between the city and the car park, essentially representing our interests. We were told at that meeting that this position would be hired and housed under planning and zoning. That position was hired. However, I have confirmed several times that that particular position has nothing to do with downtown parking, is not a liaison for the car park, and only does parking enforcement outside of the downtown area. So who's the manager employed by the city? As far as I can tell, nobody. But when did that change, and why wasn't the council notified that there was not going to be a manager handling the day-to-day decisions? We trusted that this position would be in constant contact and be our representatives, and apparently there isn't one. This position was supposed to make sure the city, including city council, was informed. The only people I see mentioned in the meeting minutes who were in regular attendance at the meetings with the car park are the mayor, the economic development director, and the car park representatives. There is no representative from council, no community members, no business owners, no other staff on a regular basis, and no parking manager. At that same October 17th meeting, we were told that the city would receive a parking facilities annual program report before budget. We were told that this report would come with all kinds of financial data, including revenue earned on a lot-by-lot basis, so we could make informed decisions and make improvements. All we've ever received was a breakdown of costs showing our loss, which apparently was not even an easy thing to get from the car park. The first time we received anything with any kind of data was on August 23rd in preparation for this meeting and 3 days after the budget was approved. At the October 17th meeting, we did not discuss the equipment at all, and in the handout we received, there was no money budgeted for that. Yet on July 30th of this year, at our last budget meeting, the mayor informed us of a lease with the car park for the equipment on this project. It was stated that it was in effect until FY 2029, costing the city $120,000 a year. It was also stated that the city decided to lease the agreement instead of purchasing it. Who approved the lease? Because city council did not. Who decided to lease the agreement instead of purchasing it? And who made the final decision about the looks of the meters and the cost of what they were going to cost to purchase them and implement them? Outside of those questions, I have been able to confirm with the city attorney, the city clerk, the economic director, and the finance director that there's no lease. There's no documentation of a lease. Nobody has a copy of the lease. So the lease that was referred to that night, was this some kind of verbal contract? The city did try to reference some wording in the agreement that, remember, was not completed by the second agreement about the car park maintaining the equipment provided by the city, but best I can tell, we never provided anything. In fact, part of the reason why the finance director needs an approval on the bill we have in hand is because none of these expenses were approved or budgeted for. So it bothers me, as it should the rest of the council, that at that October 17th meeting where decisions were made about this, that we did not have any kind of discussion about the cost of equipment. We were not told about any kind of lease, but we were told that we would have this other agreement that contained all this information, but we never received it. We must have trusted that we did, because certainly somebody would have told us if we didn't, right? So how did we go from an agreement to effectuate another agreement to all these decisions being made without council approval and a lease that apparently doesn't exist? What I did find out about the lease was that the car park has entered into a lease with the company for the equipment. The city does not have a lease. The car park does. So at what point did the city become responsible for the car park's lease? Did they get this lease based on something the city told them? I asked the rhetorical question if council approved this expenditure, because we did not. We did not approve an expenditure for equipment, which now costs $9,885 a month at about $120,000 a year, and somewhere around $593,000 over 5 years. The Idaho State Code 672806 states that when a political subdivision contemplates an expenditure to purchase or lease personal property or to procure services valued at or in excess of $150,000, we were supposed to receive bids and follow a complete set of instructions from the state. It's my understanding that after the winning bid is chosen, then council approves it. I believe this bidding process pertains to this lease as well, even one that the city is indirectly paying through the car park. That never happened, and I don't think we got any bids. Of course, I'm not an attorney, but without any legal guidance, I don't know what else to say except for what I found out in my research. But the facts remain that the council was told that we would be making a projected revenue of $613,000 a year, but in reality, we are losing $32,000 this year of taxpayer money with more losses over the next 5 years. This projection was based on parking usage at 75 to 80%, when in reality, the usage is 10 to 15%. The loss is blamed on a lease we don't have. We are paying that loss using the general fund, which is money that could be used for parking enforcement that makes sense, or police, fire, library, parks, and other departments. So how can we possibly justify taking money away from those community resources to pay for parking meters we don't even have a lease on and maybe not even a contract with? We were told the revenue would be used to reinvest in the downtown so the taxpayer didn't have to pay for it, yet they certainly are. We never received the second part of that agreement that we voted on. We don't have a parking manager. It doesn't look like we went through the correct procurement process. It looks like from the meeting minutes with Car Park on September 20th that they were even going to buy the parking meters before we even had that October 17th meeting. I don't know if they did or didn't. I do have a quick video to show you to refresh your memories if you've forgotten any of this. Obviously, this has been edited for time, and you can watch it yourself in its entirety, but please listen closely to what we were told, and that the revenue was based on all of the costs and fees being paid, which should have included the meters, but also that there was some concern as to how many spots there would be to make this revenue, and now we know that at least 3 of the lots that are being metered will be built on, so we won't be charging on those at some point, making our revenue even less than where we are at right now, and charging the taxpayer even more to sustain it.
So this is considered a resolution authorizing the execution of an operating agreement with the car park.
That's a good segue into this operations agreement that you have before you. It's unusual in that there are some real nuts and bolts types of things that need to be worked out. And so we have before you tonight sort of a high-level agreement that outlines who's responsible for what. And then in there you will see, in fact, paragraph 1A, the purpose of this agreement is to effectuate a parking management plan to be appended to this agreement as attachment 1 within 90 days. So it's not lost on me, right, the fact that we're approving an agreement, the purpose of which is to implement another agreement that we don't have. So we have initially a short term here. There are some extensions. I've got every confidence that we're going to be happy with the service of this provider. But we're not married to them long term, and we'll see how it goes. And so the way that this is going to work is at budget time, they will come forward with financial reports about what kind of revenue is being generated by your parking facilities on a lot-by-lot basis. So you can make informed decisions about whether the designation for timeframes need to be changed. But there's also going to be data collected over parking capacity. You know, how full are these lots? How full are which lots?
So the original net that we would receive is 600 and something thousand a year.
A year. Mm-hmm.
From what I remember. That's the net. So that's after paying that fee to them and the other costs that are associated with it. That was the net, if I remember correct, was right, 600 something thousand dollars.
Yes, Mayor, the number that you were referencing is, I'm looking at the proposal that they provided to us during the RFP process that closed on August 16th, and it says $613,794 is the projected revenue.
After we pay them all of our charges, fees, whatever, the city's looking at netting that.
So, Mayor, Councilwoman Register, it says total expenses to the client, us as a city, $490,000, and then the revenue would be $613,000, so it would be deducted from that total revenue.
And that's assuming that those are parked in every day and for every hour that it's open, I'm guessing.
I think the assumptions are based on cities that are comparable to us in terms of their clientele that they work with across the country. So they just analyzed how much they anticipated the cost would be.
I just wanted to make sure that we're making money off of it and it's not all going to the car park.
Sure, absolutely.
That parking isn't 24/7. It doesn't take into account 100%. Because actually, they say you don't want 100%. You need to have some empty spaces, that turnover on that. So, you know, ideal is really a 75, 80% capacity is what you want for those parking. The goal is for again, that $600,000, whatever it is, ends up being that the net that the city is able to gain from this is now that is used to do improvements in the downtown. Now we can use that money to improve it rather than, coming out of the general taxpayer dollar.
Mark, is there a performance template you're going to use on this relative to whether they perform or don't perform? And then which department of the city is going to be responsible for that?
There are performance criteria that can be worked out in detail. There are some initial performance criteria in the agreement, and I mentioned it. I probably didn't go into detail there, but yes, there's a performance criteria for them. The city, and Mayor, this is where I'm going to probably need your help. I know we're hiring for, the city will have, sort of an employee tasked with being, the city side person that monitors and enforces the agreement, and then is a primary contact for the car park as we get into it. I can't remember. It's identified as the manager, quote unquote, in this agreement. I think we have a different title.
So it'll fall under with our parking compliance position within our planning and zoning department. Again, that parking compliance position will be in the planning and zoning department in the code enforcement section, and kind of overseeing that. That's who they'll report to. So it ultimately falls under the code enforcement in the planning and zoning department.
Thank you.
I know nothing about parking, but it seems very optimistic to me. There was a description of the car park over a year's time the company would get 400,000 and change, and potential revenue to the city was 600,000 and change off of 89 meters. Because the way this agreement reads is, we get 100% of the gross, and then we pay their bill each month. And if that gross does not reach what we need, then we have to make that difference. Am I correct on that?
Correct. Yeah. Right, Councilor Allgood, these are estimates. And like I prefaced my comments with, we're going to learn a lot in the next year.
From council.
Just want to clarify one thing. This is just the initial agreement. We have a lot of work before we sign off on a final product. Is that correct?
That is correct. So this allows them to move to that next step. And then as mentioned, as far as the days, the times, the fees, the costs, that's still yet to be determined by council.
There is a lease, as Raylan mentioned, that I think ends FY29. So it'd be the next year after this is where that lease would go away. That's for the units themselves, because there's a decision whether to just pay for those all up front with fund balance, and it's decided to not, but to rather extend that out over 5 years and to pay for that lease. And that lease is at approximately $120,000 a year. So that would drop off after FY29, so you wouldn't have that cost incurred anymore. Without that, they would show a surplus, but again, you do have that lease for those 5 years from now till basically FY29.
The reason I wanted to show that video is because this isn't just about whether or not you like the meters or the dollar an hour or the time limits or if they're unsightly or anything else. We know the meter project has caused a financial burden to the city, the taxpayers, business owners, and the community. But are we now in some kind of legal bind somewhere because of the decisions that were made without council approval? I did specifically ask for a copy of the lease, just so you know, nobody has that. Or did the council not approve any of it? Did we somewhere along the line just give free rein and a blank check? All I'm asking is somebody to make it make sense. I don't know what the exact answer is to the downtown parking problem, but I know this is not it. And the council needs to make some kind of decisive action. I feel like this is another example of putting the cart before the horse, and now we're here with a bunch of problems in a community that's divided that probably could have been avoided. So we can make the changes. I don't know if we can do it with this project, though. I think there are too many things that have happened where the best option now is to cut bait and move on before we're actually locked into a lease that causes more loss. It does not mean that we can't revisit parking enforcement. I believe there are solutions that are more balanced and will not cost the taxpayer more money to subsidize a sinking project. But the point is there are options, and I think they're worth exploring. But trying to fix this that's so full of gaps and holes and misinformation is like putting a Band-Aid on it, and it's like trying to stop a hemorrhage with a Q-tip. So if we go on tonight, and especially before October, please keep these things in mind. Of course, we want your feedback, but are we wasting everybody's time here if we're not in a contract and we're losing money? In the beginning of the statement, I lined out the things that we are responsible for in our decision-making, and in my opinion, this plan was not well thought out. It was not balanced. It is not attainable long-term. We don't seem to have support from a majority of the community. It doesn't feel like the information was completely truthful or accurate for us to vote on, and it clearly does not display fiscal responsibility, not to mention what kind of legal mess this might have caused. So I'm going to leave this up to the council, but in my opinion, there are too many things that were promised that didn't happen, and too many legal questions unanswered to move forward. Even if we make changes, I don't know how we do that with a contract that might not even be a contract, and if we continue to work off of that, are we inadvertently entering into more agreements that lock us into something, meaning if we don't have a lease but we pay the bill on the lease, are we somehow agreeing to the lease? And if we make changes in the form of a resolution tonight, are we now agreeing to moving forward without that agreement that we're supposed to have? Do we have any issues with the state code? I think we owe it to ourselves, the city, and the community to figure that out, which again causes me to ask that the meters be turned off until we can figure it out. The administration...
Please remember what we said at the beginning of the meeting. Thank you.
This administration, council, previous administrations, and previous councils and community members have worked so hard to make Caldwell a destination place, and we are not only destroying that with this project, dividing our community and causing a financial burden, we might be seeing an even bigger problem in years to come with the way that this was handled. So with that, I am going to recommend to the council that we stop the project immediately, turn off the meters, and get the questions answered before we do one more thing or make one more change.
Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, just for convenience sake, especially the ladies, there's still some seats up front here in the next couple of rows if you want to use them on both sides. So, thank you.
Councilor Doty.
I would just, I think Councilor Register's, I don't want to call it a speech, but her presentation was certainly informative. And do we have some of the answers to some of her questions currently instead of just moving on? Is there, I think she has a list of them there. Can we answer some of those in case, to eliminate some of the issues or concerns?
So the one I know that came up a lot was the lease, and I may turn to Mr. Hilty. So the lease is through the car park and the company that, it was a Flowbird that did those, so it was not through the city itself. So if I'm not mistaken, Mark, can you elaborate maybe on that a little bit?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I can some. This was the operating agreement that was approved back in October provided that the city would pay all the operating expenses of implementing the paid parking. That included, of course, acquiring the meters themselves. And so that would be defined as an operating expense in the agreement that was, I think we all knew we needed meters if we were going to have downtown paid parking. The question was kind of how and when to acquire them. And it is, I think, true that in working with the car park, they had access to the meters through their contacts in the industry, and they acquired them. And I don't know from any first-hand knowledge whether they leased them or they bought them, but they did acquire them and provided them to the city, and then it was worked out. And I think this was done at the staff level. That the city would pay kind of an amortized acquisition price for those meters over time. I think they were $400,000 or $500,000. Under the operating agreement, that would have been an operating expense that needed to be put in place to get the system up and running. And the car park, again, with communication with city staff, I believe back in the spring, worked out this deal where they would be paid as an operating expense, but instead of all at once over a 3-year period, or 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
I want to respond to that real quick. I realize about the operating expense, however, in that handout that we had on October 17th, there is, I have a copy of it here, and there was a budget that was sort of laid out like this, and there's zero in there for equipment financing. So the council was not aware at that meeting what the meters would cost, and it never came back before council. And so if like you said, if it had been worked out at a staff level, there's still a state code that says that if it's going to be $150,000 or over in cost, that we are supposed to go through that process where we receive, I think it's 3 bids, and then we go through like a whole RFP process and then come back and vote on it, and we were not afforded that opportunity. Because had they come back to us and said, it's going to cost $10,000 a month, here's what it looks like in its entirety, how do we know how the council would have voted? But I think legally the council was supposed to vote. And then, yeah, I think that was it. But it is not in that original budget, and I don't remember ever seeing it after that. We never had a conversation about the meters, like the actual units.
Yeah, again, that may very well be true, probably is true. I think at the time that was put together, when we were looking at it last October, I think the plan was for the city to just purchase the meters, and then that did change over time.
Right, and we were not informed. So can you confirm that the city itself is not in a lease with the car park for anything, for the equipment?
That is true.
Okay, so with the absence of the second part of that agreement that we did not receive within 90 days, does that void the original agreement with the car park that we were presented on that night?
I think that the answer to that is no, it's not void, but there are some more complicated legal issues running around in that for 2 reasons. Once we get into potential liabilities, responsibilities under the existing contract, there's going to be some information I'd probably prefer to convey to council privately.
That's fine.
In executive session. However, and I wasn't certainly prepared to speak to it tonight.
I understand that. And I wish that these questions had been answered when I sent the email out. And I'm frustrated that they weren't, because now here we are, right, with no good answers. My other concern with this is that if we didn't receive the second part of that agreement, we were pretty sure that that means the agreement was in place, but we're not really sure. I asked you when at budget, or was it, at budget time, that if we budgeted for money for the car park, that didn't automatically put us into some kind of agreement. It was strictly just budgeting. And so what I'm concerned about is the more that we work off this agreement that we aren't really sure what it is, if we created these suggestions thinking that it might make a difference for some of the people downtown and people who were struggling with the meters. And so we thought maybe this would help for a little bit in the interim until October when it comes back for a vote. But what I'm concerned about is continuing to work off something that we don't even know if it's a contract, and then locking ourselves into something more long-term. Does that make sense, without having any paperwork? And to be honest with you, I'm very, very concerned that at the staff level that they can enter into something that costs the city $120,000 a year without council approval.
Yeah, understood. And on the existing operating agreement, it is something that can be terminated at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is October. I think you're aware of that.
Yeah.
And so the obligations, responsibilities of both parties under that agreement do not need to extend into the next fiscal year. That's something that council will decide.
Well, the concern about that I keep hearing is this lease that we're supposedly responsible for paying if we decide that we don't want to renew the contract. So are we responsible for the lease?
I think the answer to that is no. We had a conversation with the car park last week about that issue in particular. And their plan is if the city does not want to go forward into the next fiscal year, then we will get together and work up with them on getting the meters sold. They have contacts, of course, across the country for doing that. And so that's sort of the working plan.
So my question is though, is that if staff entered into this agreement without council approval, can we be held responsible for the lease? It seems to me that because it doesn't fall within state code, that it would just be something that wouldn't be legal.
It's fair concern, and there may be a dispute over that. in the event of any dispute that we would have, we would try to work it out first, and that certainly seems to be what the car park wants to do.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just also want to remind the council that as we're thinking about parking enforcement, because I think we can all agree that there's historically been a problem downtown with, trying to move people in and out, making sure that there's spaces and all this kind of stuff, that some of the things that we consider is we do have a parking enforcement officer on the payroll who doesn't work downtown right now, but certainly, she could probably do some work downtown, and I've already spoken with the police chief who could work with their code enforcement. So we do have some options of people that are already on the payroll. We don't have to hire anybody. And we were also given a presentation last year where if we decided to do some kind of premium parking downtown, just on the main downtown businesses, not the side streets, not the lots. And we had pole meters. They were something like $800 a pole that covered both sides. We could match it with the uniqueness and historical look of the downtown just in those main places. And I figured that the cost would be about $120,000 for enough of them. I mean, please don't quote me on that because I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's sort of what it looked like, which is 1 year of the lease that could go 5 years. So also, I had a talk with the finance director who projects, again, these are just projections, that a parking garage, if we put it out to you and you voted for it, the numbers are somewhere around $8.33 a month on your property tax. So that would be up to you if you wanted that, but then it would be your choice. So we've always heard how expensive it is, but then when you break it down, it just didn't seem as expensive as I once thought. So anyway, my concern here tonight is the legality of this. I want to hear from all of you. I'm just not sure if we even need to, because I feel like we should pause this until we get these questions answered and make sure that we're not in some kind of legal mess. Just know that it comes back for a vote in October, and you guys are allowed to be here and speak, and that if the council decides to look at other parking enforcement, there is some options.
Okay, thank you. So we will proceed with Mr. Jenkins will give a staff presentation on it, kind of get us up to date on that. So while he is preparing that, again, there was a number of points of discussion. You are free to speak on whatever you wish, but at the intent is to hear from all of you that wish to speak, and there was a number of points of discussion that have been brought forward by council to discuss, and so we'll move into that after you are all allowed to come forward. Those are, and I'll just go through them real quick. Looking at different aspects of the parking meters, the maximum allowed time limits for on-street parking, which is currently limited to 3 hours. The initial allotment of free parking, which is now 15 minutes currently. The enforcement and hours and days. Currently, it's Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pay by space versus pay by plate, which is replacing the multi-space meters with standard single-space meters, converting the 6th Avenue paid parking lot into free parking, the current exemptions that exist for free parking, the English and Spanish languages on all meters and signages, and then also discussion regarding meter placement, and then anything else that does come up during the meeting as well that can be discussed at that time. So those are some of the key points that were to be addressed tonight. Again, you're free to speak on whatever you wish. If you just want to stand up and say you don't like them, get rid of them, you're more than welcome to do that, and that can be discussed by council as well at the end of the meeting. So with that, Mr. Steve Jenkins, our Economic Development Director, the time is yours.
This evening, and Councilwoman Register, thank you for your comments just now. I wanted to share a document with you that was provided that was based on original projections that were tied to that number that you determined, and I can share that narrative with you just for your reference. It wasn't, I have no interest in dividing our team or our city any further. I'll share that with you offline. So that way that everything is accurate in terms of the assessment and how they base their projections.
I have it, and it doesn't have the equipment on it. And then the projections for the first year were over $1 million. It was $1,103,878 with $282,000 in projected revenue from violations, bringing a total of projection revenue of over $1.3 million, less all of the information that's listed on here. The math doesn't really even make sense because it has $490,000 in expenses, leaving the city $613,794.85 in net revenue. And then this part right here is the equipment cost that it's blank. So, two of us asked that night if the numbers included all the costs, and we were told that it did.
Sure. All I'm saying is I have a narrative that the car park provided to me that was based on how they determined the original projections, and I can share that with the council. I just want to make sure you're aware of that document.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, council, I just want to express my gratitude to you all. Mayor, council, I know that this topic is tough to get through. The city has gone through many similar situations. I just refer to Indian Creek, the daylighting of Indian Creek, which was a challenge. I mean, there were so many things that came up during that process that transpired during that time that the former council had to contend with as well. Indian Creek Plaza is another one that I have read a lot about and studied a lot about, and I know that this is something that the council and the mayor previously had worked through diligently. So again, I just want to express my gratitude to you all for working through this. And really the goal is for parking efficiency. No matter how we get there, the plan is to make sure that we have an efficient parking system downtown. So regardless of the mechanism that's used to get there, I know that this council I have no doubt that we'll find a way forward. Caldwell has a ton of grit. I'm here in Caldwell now because of the heartbeat that's in this town. I've poured my heart out for this city, quite frankly, and worked really hard in the background to make things happen. I know staff has done the same thing. Mayor, I know you have as well. But all the people that I work with, I just see the passion that's gone into the work that we do. So I just want to say that just collectively, we're better together. And ultimately, we're going to make decisions that are going to benefit our downtown parking plan as a whole. So thank you for that ahead of time. Just to get into this, just to go over a brief agenda, I just want to talk a little bit about the history of parking. Also want to refer to the parking information, the meetings that we've conducted over time. And Councilwoman Register, you referenced a couple meetings. I'll just lay out the meetings in their entirety for everyone's view. Proposed projects in downtown Caldwell, economic conditions, and the why behind enforcement. So moving forward, there was a parking study that was conducted on July 19th of 2023. That was by Kimley Horn. We received there was a first draft on June 16th, 2023, and then a final draft on July 19th, 2023. Then from that point, we had a request for proposals for parking facilities management, and that was, the due date for that RFP was August 16th, 2023. Beyond that, we had parking operations agreement approval. That was October 17th, 2023. And then we had a parking plan approval. That was a city council meeting. That was December 5th, 2023. And then parking enforcement began May 15th, 2024. So not quite 3 months on that. And then here's our current parking map for the enforcement that is evident downtown. And I wanted to have this available for, just to remind you of what we're talking about, but also just to provide, to be available as a reference point for future discussions that pertain to the agenda. So general parking facts, over 50% of Caldwell's parking inventory is free. Downtown Caldwell has approximately 1,134 public parking stalls and 880 private parking stalls, according to a 2023 Kimley Horn parking study. Parking revenue has increased each month. Earnings increased by 22.87% from June to July and 8.92% from July to August. Customers are currently paying with credit cards around 80% of the time and then 30% on the mobile app. And then we have courtesy notices that we're really prioritizing the education of this. This is new for Caldwell. I know we had meters years ago, but this is something new. This is a new plan. This is new equipment, so we want to make sure that it was a delicate approach. And the car park, our partners, were keen on doing that, and I appreciate their approach to that. So there were 7 courtesy notices that were given out in May. Again, we started in May 15th, 2024. In June, there were 129 courtesy notices. In July, 639 courtesy notices. And in August, 1,069 courtesy notices. This equates to 1 violation to 15.3 courtesy notices total. And then free parking assessment, 15-minute free parking increased by 17.83% from June, and 3-hour free option has increased by 45.67% from June as well. So that indicates that there's a learning process that has gone through the community as it relates to the free parking options that are available. And then staffing, there's a one full-time on-site manager and parking enforcement ambassadors for 57 hours per week to match the program's operating hours. And then public meetings that we've had that pertain to parking, and you can see that they're broken down by category, topic, location, and date. So the topic, number 1, is parking garage discussion. That took place September 13, 2022. Then we had parking garage locations and financing, March 7, 2023. Kimley Horn parking study and results, June 20th, 2023. Parking management partner, RFP results and recommendation, that was August 21st, 2023. Parking survey results and proposed parking enforcement area, October 3rd, 2023. And then parking fees and implementation, that was December 5th, 2023. And then community outreach, so we had 2 public open houses for the community, and then we had business improvement meetings, business improvement district meetings that took place. So the first 2 public open houses, the first one was on September 28, 2023. The second was on November 6, 2023. And then the business improvement district meetings that we had 2 of them. First one was November 13, 2024, and the last one we had was April 15, 2024. So in full transparency, just wanted to make sure that that was outlined clearly. And then future downtown projects, and we talked a little bit about this at the public open houses that were conducted. The first project that is slated for development is TS Development. They just closed on a property in downtown Caldwell, just west of where we're sitting now. And they are proposing a 23,620 square foot, 3-story mixed-use buildings. They have approximately 29 parking stalls that will be available for the use of their residents and also the business retail users that they'll have occupying the building. Then we have a 119 South Kimball RFP. This is future, so that's in 0.10 acres. Right now it's a dirt lot, and that will be redeveloped in the future. RRC Contractors, they are proposing a 15,721 square foot, 2-story mixed-use buildings. They have no parking on site. They'll have no residential included in their project, by the way. And then Tillion Phase 2, this is a future project that's currently being discussed. This is all public information, of course, with regard to urban renewal meetings. And this is still yet to be worked out, but that's a potential future project there as well. And then Obi Company's Boutique Hotel, 75 to 100 rooms, and they are proposing valet parking to be integrated with their project. So broader economic conditions, the Idaho Division of Financial Management, the sales tax is tied to general sales. Any increase and decrease in sales tax revenues directly connected to retail sales. So sales tax in the state of Idaho are down 21.26% over the last 18 months. This was assessed in June of 2024. The Association of Idaho Cities Budget Manual. So you can see that there's a breakdown of the sales tax distribution throughout the state. And from fiscal year 2020, there was an increase of 6.12%. 2021, increase of 18.6%, 2022, an increase of 14.3%, and then 2023, increase of 4.9%, and then you can see the decrease starting in 2024, negative 2.4%, and then the decrease of 2025, negative 4.1%. And then global data, I'll bypass some of this information, but we grew nationally, total retail sales in the U.S., excluding automobiles and gasoline, saw a modest increase of 0.74%, seasonally adjusted. And the National Retail Federation President, CEO, Matthew Shea, he stated that July's data reflects what we are seeing across the economy, that while consumer spending remains cautious, they are still spending on essentials when they find value. Testing my eyesight there, but just wanted to give you an idea of broader economic conditions. These are things that we're facing both statewide and nationally, but impact some of the retail sales and all that information for downtown and beyond, really, but just in general. And then the why. Ultimately, the why is tied to the inventory, occupancy, and future needs parking study that was finalized by Kimley Horn, but I'll walk you through that and then talk to you about also the LPR scanning process that took place with vehicles downtown. So first, we'll start with the survey. Walking survey was tied to that overall parking study on 5/17/2023. There was drone footage that was integrated to measure parking demand on 5/13, which was a Saturday, that's 2023, and then 5/16, which is a Tuesday, in 3-hour segments. They offered 4 recommendations, with 1 being paid parking in high-demand areas such as Main Street and Kimball Avenue, as a result of the information that they compiled from the study. The survey reviewed 4 potential downtown projects growth scenarios. The combined data suggests that downtown Caldwell does not have adequate parking inventory to accommodate future conditions. The other one was the LPR scanning that took place on November 27th, November 28th, November 30th of 2023. They measured 23 blocks of parking in downtown. 18% of parkers had parked for more than 1 day. 5.3% parked all 3 days. On average, 15% of parkers stayed more than 3 hours. The peak parking demand occurred at 6 p.m. on the 30th, which is a Thursday, with 47% of the parking area exceeding 85% occupancy. and 85% or greater is considered functionally full. So the vision for downtown parking, the city's parking plan is designed to promote the turnover of parking spaces, ensuring access to those conducting business downtown while encouraging downtown employees and those requiring long-term parking to use free perimeter areas. So ultimately, that is the goal. However we get there is how we get there, but ultimately that's the goal of what we're trying to accomplish. This approach reflects best practices to ensure a vibrant downtown community, both now and in the future. All right, and that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I just want to open it up for questions and also give everybody time to get through the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Do you have any
Thank you.
questions from council at this time for Mr. Jenkins? Yes, Councilor Register.
One of the studies done on November 28th, I think you said, when does Winter Wonderland open?
Winter Wonderland is, so Mayor, Councilwoman Register, Winter Wonderland is November 21st, I believe, somewhere in that, in November 21st or 22nd of 2023.
Before when they did, I'm just wondering if the full capacity was due to Winter Wonderland or if that's an everyday thing all year long. And again, I don't disagree that there's a parking issue in the downtown. I just want to make sure that it's legal and that we're doing the right thing. And also for me and you, we had a lot of email exchanges, and I know I was getting a little bit hot because I wanted the information for the community, so I appreciate your patience. You've always been very professional, and I just want, I realize how hard you've worked on this, and I think you kind of got wrapped up in the middle of something that you're doing your job, and honestly, I just want you to know that.
Well, thank you. I really
You're doing a
appreciate
good
that.
job.
Thank you very much.
Any other, yes, Councilman Allgood.
Yeah, just to clarify, Mr. Jenkins, the building RRC development on Kimball and the building at Fifth and Arthur, those buildings are not projected. Those buildings have pulled permits, they're going up, right?
Yes, Mayor, Councilman Allgood, yes, they are and slated for development. So those are properties that are actively pursuing development by getting permits through the city. TS Development, in fact, has actually closed on their property and preparing for redevelopment as we speak.
And then, I don't have to put out any names, but I understand there is a very active restaurant slated to go in at 7th and Main in the bottom of the Tillian building.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the green lights to see for now, so we'll see if some more come up later on, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we move into public testimony, just for the record, there was a number of comments received, emails, letters by our city clerk, so there was actually 56 letters received, people that were either not able to be here tonight or wanted to provide written testimony, so those have all been provided to the council on that, so just want to make sure that that is noted on that. And then as we do get into testimony, again, ask that you do limit your comments to 5 minutes. If you do get to that point, you will hear an alarm go off, and would ask that you just take the next 10 seconds to wrap up the sentence that you're on so we can move on. As you can see, there's a lot of people here, a lot of people signed up. We want to make sure everybody gets their chance to be heard. And again, just a reminder, I know that there are a lot of people in opposition to this, some people in support, so just ask that regardless of where you stand, to avoid the cheering, the clapping, this is a public meeting, and we do ask for decorum to be maintained on that. If we do need a recess, we will do that at that time and hope to get things under control. We do want to finish this tonight, and we can do that if we can all stay focused on the goal of collecting the testimony from all of you, and seeing really what is in the best interest of the city, and that is, I know, what is at the heart of all the council members up here. So would ask again for your cooperation in not clapping, cheering, even if you are in agreement, to avoid those things, and then we'll move on for that. And if you just want to agree with the person before you, you're more than welcome to come forward and just state that, and then we can move on in that regard. So with that, we will begin with Sue Sebastian. Are you here? So when you come forward again, if you would just state your name and then your address for the record, that'll help our city clerk out as she maintains the notes for this meeting. And then you'll have, again, 5 minutes. You'll see it up on the clock. We should have that time from down going up, and the time is yours.
Well, first of all, I know there's a lot of people here waiting to speak, so I'm going to keep it very short. My name is Sue Sebastian, and I appreciate your time today, Council and Mayor. I live at 1415 Lurie Lane, Base Canyon Hill. And I've lived in this community about 6 years after I moved out of Garden Valley for 20 and Ketchum for 15. So I've been here 45 years. I've seen a lot of changes in Idaho. And my concern right now today with this parking meter situation is not the dollar amount. It's the whole principle of what's going on with the direction of the city on making premature decisions which are very costly to the citizens and taxpayers. Our median income in Caldwell is $69,000. It doesn't even compete with Boise, Meridian, or any of the adjoining municipalities. So I feel that there's one thing that we're trying to do is jump ahead of the cart maybe before we finalize our decisions to put in something quite expensive like this parking meter situation. I've never had a problem parking, and I'm able-bodied, but I did see a couple come out of the restaurant one day at Indian Creek, and they're about 80 years old trying to walk over the railroad tracks to get the free parking, and I was just appalled by that whole situation. There's other ways to deal with parking problems. I work at a hospital in Boise. We have parking stickers on cars for employees. There's other ways to designate employee parking lots. And I think there's a lot more cost-effective measures than paying $400,000 to a third-party company that's been known to have hacking. Right now, they got a problem with their QR codes being hacked. And I won't put my information into them. I'm getting ready to retire next year, and I can't afford to have a hack at this point in my life. So what I would like to recommend is that we do not continue the lease in October. We're going to have to take a bite of $85,000 according to what I investigated with that cost for canceling the supposed lease that we probably don't have. And so from that point, I would like to move on that we're planning to discontinue the parking meters. There's other measures the city can implement with the personnel we have to make it more efficient for the people coming to visit us as well as the citizens that pay taxes here. That's all I have to really say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sue. We appreciate you coming and for your testimony. Dustin Rose. Dustin, are you? Oh, there. Sorry, I didn't see you sneaking up. If you could just state your name and address for the record, then you'll have your 5 minutes.
Yes, my name is Dustin Rose. I live at 4243 Leonardo Avenue in Meridian, Idaho. I'm a realtor with Silver Creek Realty, and I represent my client who has a 25,000 square foot building on 6th in Maine. And the impact of your decision in December of, I think, December 3, to put these, to implement your parking program and to take the parking lot behind the building, which was about 100 parking spaces. This is all permitted parking now. So the impact of it is, you can see, there's a for sale sign up in front of the building now, and I have the basement ready for lease. I had a man come in and he wanted to lease the facility, 10,000 square feet in the lower level. And he was all ready to go, and the next thing you know, he discovered the parking problem. And he said, what am I going to do for parking? I have large groups. It's on Saturdays, it's all permitted, it's paid parking. There's no parking behind the building. So I suggested maybe we could come up with a system for shuttling from open lots and that sort of thing. And the upshot is simply that the individual did not want to do it. So the church, which is upstairs, that's 10,000 square feet, they've notified me that they're probably not going to renew their lease next year. So now, the owner has put over $1 million plus into that building, renovating it, bringing it up to 2022 code. There are stairwells, there's elevator, there's all kinds of new equipment that's in there, which has modernized that building. It's a substantial loss to him. So I suggest that the city council consider coming up with a different plan as far as paid parking, where there's not so much an impact is the availability of the parking. And behind the building itself, to take that out and make it permitted and not open parking, really impacts this individual. So that's all I'd like to say at this point.
Thank you, Dustin. Really appreciate you being here, taking the time. Amy Perry. And again, could you please state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have your 5 minutes.
Amy Perry, 2205 East Linden. I own the property on the corner of Blaine and 6th. And everything that gentleman said, that's true. You're impacting my renter and her income, and she's my daughter, so this is really kind of irritating me. And then Ms. Register's questions, they haven't been answered, and she was asking them in December of last year. They're the same questions, and she's still asking them. So I'm not for or against paid parking, but I am absolutely against poor management. Let's address that problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for being here. I believe it is Saja Fletcher. And again, just please state your name and record.
Saja Fletcher,
Yeah,
314 South 6. I own the Rubiot. It has impacted my people that have come to the store. Some people can't afford to pay it, so they've quit coming. It's impacted people coming from out of town, bringing money into our town. It's impacted how people behave towards each other when they're frustrated. And with the heat, it's impacted them for standing out there. Some people can't. I want to know the answers to Councilwoman Register's questions. I think we need to do that before we go any further and before we lock ourselves any further into this problem. I read the resolution. There was nothing about these meters, at least for the meters in there. I have studied it. There was nothing in there. So if it was done on a level it shouldn't have been, we need to take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate that. And I did also forget to mention that we do have Ellen Miller, appreciate her being here, our Spanish translator. So if there is somebody that does not speak English or does not feel comfortable, we do have the ability to have that translation as well. So I want to thank Ellen for being here and just note that, and I apologize I did not state that sooner. And we are kind of going in with different orders. So Travis Palmer, you did indicate you wanted to testify, correct?
So Travis Palmer, 1001 Blaine Street. I'm the director of the Caldwell Chamber of Commerce. So my job is to try to listen to the businesses, the business community and the citizens whenever and wherever possible. So I signed up on the neutral category because frankly, I've heard, a lot of negative stories, but I've also heard a significant amount of positive results from the parking. And then, of course, my own personal experiences have been mixed as well. I've had some trouble personally being able to read the screens on the smaller, individual ones. But then I also found that the multi-spot ones were pretty easy to navigate. So I've had good and bad experiences personally. I guess the main thing I wanted to say is I don't think there's anybody that can deny that we have a parking issue that needs to be dealt with, and that has, created some problems. I think, maybe I'm overly optimistic or naive, but I truly believe that everybody on the council really wants to help alleviate this issue. I don't think there's anybody that's, just trying to look for a money grab or trying to, make life harder for businesses. I think you guys all care about the community that you represent. I think some of the solutions that have been presented and that we're trying have worked in some ways, but I think it's also created a new series or a new set of issues that the council and the community is going to have to figure out. I don't know what the answers are. I'm not an expert. I did actually talk to an expert on community development, and the phrase that stuck with me was that parking does not always have to be free, but it has to be worth it. And I think that there are some places where it's absolutely worth it. In my experience, when I've come to meetings downtown, I've been happy to pay a small fee to get a spot close and quickly to where I wanted to go for the time that I needed it. And then there's some places where I'm like, oh man, really? I got to pay for a spot here? So, it's got to be worth it. And I'll keep the rest of my comments short because, again, I am pretty neutral on it, but I would encourage any business, member or not of the chamber, if you ever want to, give feedback or inquire, we're out there, we're trying to listen and distill the information and pass it back and forth. So anything that the Chamber of Commerce can do, we're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Travis, and thank you for everything you do with the chamber. It is well noted, all the improvements, everything you've done down there, so thank you so much for that. James Ridge. And again, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name is James Ridge, 1524 Blaine. So quite frankly, okay, so some people are doing really well with the meters. Some people are not. For the ones that are not, frankly, you're killing us. You just are. They're badly implemented. We do know that there's parking problems. Everybody's known that for years and years and years. It's killing us. They need to go. If they're not going to go until Ms. Register's questions are answered fully and disseminated to the people, they should be shut off. Because if we're in a legal quandary, that's not a good place for the city to be in, because it opens all of us up to some really bad situations. Just do what's right. Seriously.
I have a question real quick, sir.
Yeah.
Do you have a business here?
I do not, but I work at one. I do not have...
I was just curious.
Yeah, I do work downtown.
But the business that you work at has been seeing
Yes.
a hit then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James, we appreciate that. Christopher, I believe it's Christopher Ott. If you could just state your name and address for the record, and then the 5 minutes is yours.
Good evening, Council. My name is Christopher Ott. I live at 716 Arthur, which is also a chop shop. When I came first, I was trying to meet you guys in the middle. At this point, my stance has changed. If you have the opportunity to turn them off and remove them, please do so, as quickly as possible. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Please do refrain. I understand you do an agreement, but please refrain. You've done a great job. Thank you so much for that. Willow Hill? And if you could state your address for the record, that'd be appreciated.
It's Willow Hale at 503 West Linden, and I am one of your hated California transports. So I just want you to know, I do still have a place in Burbank, California. I've lived in LA for 33 years, and in Burbank, we don't have any parking problems. You have a 2-hour, 3-hour time period to park your car and do everything, and it's flourishing. We have thrift stores, we've got restaurants, we've got coffee shops, everything going on in Burbank, even gun shops. And the thing is, I came out here and I loved Caldwell, and I thought, how wonderful. And with my friend, ever since you put in the parking, we don't go have coffee at the Flying M. I don't go to Extreme Pizza. I don't go to, I'll say, nah. And we, where we go? We go outside to 10th over there by Linden, where you don't have to worry about parking. I watched LA, and when they did what you're doing, and I've looked at what was on there, when you start taking away what you have as a special neighborhood, and you put up these big old condos, and then you provide parking, big parking lots, and the people, you have changed your city, and you're going to lose the very thing that is beautiful about Caldwell. And you should listen to me because, as I said, I lived 33 years in Los Angeles, and I have seen it change and go down. And the other thing I want to address is the fact of the management, because I'm also a member of the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, and I sit on a lot of board meetings. And the most important thing is management. Everything is about management. You don't do anything that involves money under the table or when somebody doesn't get known, especially the council. So I'm just telling you, I'm warning you really, because you're going to ruin your little small city. And what's going to happen when you come Christmas time and you have your skating rink and your lights, and you've got people just are frustrated. So please, I agree with everybody that's spoken here. Turn the things off. find out what you didn't hear about. And all this stuff about, it's going to be beautiful in the end, I'm sick of hearing that, okay? I'm talking about now, not in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, appreciate that. Kelly Jenkins, you did a TBD. I guess it's, and it's yes, I'm guessing, as you're coming forward. So again, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Mayor, City Council, I'm Kelly Jenkins. And I reside at 16091 Orchard Avenue, and I've tried to remain neutral as well on the parking meters. And as somebody who spent years as the board president for Destination Caldwell, back in 2015 through 2020-ish, we all hoped that this would be the problem, that Caldwell would experience parking issues. When the plaza was just being created, that was a hope and a dream that one day we would have to make these hard decisions. But I think there's better ways to make this decision than the parking meters. I love our downtown. I love what we've created together, and it's taken each and every one of you. It's taken our business improvement district, it's taken property owners, business owners, to all come together to create something that is really truly unique, special, and a destination. But what I hate is hearing people say, like that lady, I don't go to downtown anymore. Well, that was the problem that we had, 8 years ago, where people were taking their money to other communities. Now we've created this incredible experience in downtown Caldwell, and we want to invite people to come. We don't want them to have to pay to come. We want them to pay and leave their money at local businesses and find another solution. I think in October, whenever you had your open houses on the parking meters, we came to one, my husband and I, and we own some property in downtown Caldwell, and we've made some significant investments to try to grow this destination. And at that point in time, I was pretty vocal and said, parking meters are not the solution. First of all, we're in an economic downturn. Dollars are harder to come by. People don't have as much money. That alone, is the situation. But the reality is, we just want them to spend their money in downtown supporting local businesses. And honestly, let's just have the ordinances enforced for paid parking times, the 2-hour, the 3-hour, and turn those parking spots that way. I love this town. I love all that you guys are doing to try to, make Caldwell that destination that we worked hard to create. I'd love to see you all working together in a nice way that really shows off Caldwell for being just a very awesome place where people can be kind to each other and get things done and continue to grow this downtown movement that is so beautiful and has taken a lot of years and a lot of people coming together as one. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, appreciate
Mr. Mayor?
that. Yes.
May I ask a question,
Yeah.
Kelly? Have you had any feedback from the folks that lease or rent your buildings as far as their business is concerned?
We have,
And
it is concerning because they are seeing, a decline and a drop in their revenue. Now, how much of that is tied to the economic, conditions that are going on with the downturn, and how much of it is tied to parking meters? Don't know, but the bottom line is, if we could eliminate one of those out of the equation, it would help them a great deal.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. Robert Mora. He had to leave? Okay, so he had signed up as neutral on that, so just note that. Miguel Gotti.
Thank you. Miguel Gadi, 815 Arthur Street. Similar, property owner. We did invest a lot of money in the building. In all my years here and working with cities throughout the valley, I never found people so caring about their city as the people I met in Caldwell, from Fire Marshal, Steven, planning department, Caldwell had something different, something special. Everybody really cared about it, felt ownership. Any policymaker, any staff that I met was truly vested in the success of the city. And I think this is the case as well, right? I guess we all understand there's a problem. I think it's about choices and conveniency, and the same issues that now the parking meters are generating in terms of, I don't want to give my information, I don't want to stand here an extra 5 minutes, burning under the sun. But that's, when you allow people to park for a whole day, that's taking away choices and conveniences in another realm. That's also affecting businesses and people that want to come to Caldwell and spend their money. So I think there's an issue to be addressed. The parking meters may not have been the right choice, but my question is, the issue is still the issue, and we're all after the same thing. The vibrancy, people coming here, enjoying, not presented with challenges or being harder for them to park, to spend, to decide to stay an extra hour instead of deciding the parking meter's running, so I better go and not pay. But let's have a solution in place for that, right? And I think we all care equally about the success of the city. So what can we put in place before, doing away with this? Turning it off, maybe a good solution, but I would not want to spend more money addressing something, right? Was removal. I don't want the city to go into additional expenses without having figured out a solution to the real problem that needs to be addressed. So, thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate that. Nancy Kurtz.
I also have,
you
I
have
have
a
a question for
question?
the
Okay,
group,
sorry.
actually, before we continue. How many of you out there, just by show of hands, are business owners downtown? And then out of all of you, would you, show of hands again, be willing to ask your employees maybe to park in outside lots or down the street or whatever, or because I think that was, so you would move employees onto side streets or out of that downtown core into a lot? Because I think part of this, what I'm hearing, is going to be a lot of working together with the businesses. So if employees are taking up spaces, which is sort of what we've heard, if the outside streets were not metered and just that downtown core was, but the outside streets were not, and the lots, would they be able to park there, leaving that center spot free? Something to consider, I guess.
Okay. Nancy Kurtz. And if you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nancy Kurtz. I live at 22021 Rio Vista Drive in Caldwell, Idaho. I have just a minimal amount to say here regarding these. I do have a business, but it's not where the parking meters are. Fortunately, my building has its own parking lot. I looked at purchasing a building at the end of Main Street, thinking that I was going to have a tax and accounting office, thinking that I would do better with ground level parking, ground level street entrance. However, when the parking meters went in, I definitely changed my mind about that, because I'm not going to ask my clients to pay to park to come in for a 3-hour consultation on getting their taxes done or an accounting gig. So that changed my mind there. I'm hoping that you don't bring those parking meters in closer to where I am. Fortunately, we have a parking lot that my clients can park in. But for businesses that are sitting on the street that are a service-oriented business, where their customers come in and pay them for something, then you want them to pay to come in to pay you. And I find that there's a conflict of interest on that one. And my other comment that I have is there used to be a lot of free parking all up and down along the railroad tracks behind, I think that's Main Street. Now it's all permit parking. Who gets those permits? And did anybody take into consideration the employees that work in these businesses that have to pay to park while they're employed? Because there's no place within reasonable walking distance to park. And those I'm including are people that work at the post office that have to be there at 2:30 in the morning. Nobody's going to walk 3 blocks at 2:30 in the morning downtown Caldwell. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nancy. Appreciate it. Bob Clark.
Well, you've heard me a number of times, and I'd like to say, first of all, for Ms. Register, that was a brilliant presentation, and based upon your facts and not the fiction we've gotten here before, all I see out of this is malfeasance, because it looks to me like we haven't been told the truth about the parking meters, which You know, I represent one of 25 different business owners right downtown Caldwell. And I made this comment before, nobody up here has or owns a business in downtown Caldwell, so there's a big disconnect. But people who own a business in downtown Caldwell hate parking meters. We're not going to be happy until the parking meters are gone. We don't want parking meters down here. They're hurting our business. I've had 25 guests, other people, business owners come down here and say the very same thing. But I see nothing but malfeasance we've not been told the truth about this parking meter fiasco of losing money. And this is the horror story. It was more than a history you gave, Mr. Register. It was a horror story of how much money the city is hemorrhaging every month on parking meters. What is it, $3,000 or something? And you need to come up with $445,000 at the end of the year to pay for the parking meters. And what are you making, $3,000 a month? My math is not fuzzy. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. And the more you drag this thing on, the more you create, every day you're creating more debt for me, a business owner, and the people who come into my shop who pay sales tax. For us, it shouldn't be a burden for us. You made a very, very, really poor decision. And based on mismanagement or malfeasance, you can call it whatever you like, but when you go out and solicit contracts over $150,000, like Ms. Register said, and don't get certain approval or certain procedures, there's a protocol to all of that. And open bidding, for example. You just go ahead and shake a deal and you're operating on a contract apparently that doesn't exist. It's either super bad management or malfeasance. But we want the parking meters gone, and we want whoever's responsible to pay the cost. It shouldn't be left up to the taxpayers. It should be left up to the people who made the stupid decision in the first place.
Bob, could you state your address? Sorry, for the record. Do you mind?
718 Main.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Caldwell.
George Decker. And again, if you could just state your name and address, then you have your 5 minutes.
My name is George Decker. We own a business at 106 South Kimball. I was here in June as a neutral. Now, I'm against it. Now I'm finding out that we actually do have people on the payroll that are enforcement. It's really disconcerting to me. There were signs that said 3-hour parking, and nothing happened to those, to the people who were parking for all day. And that's disconcerting to me, because that person should have been putting those tickets out there, right? The other side of this is we want people downtown. We want people to spend money in our stores. I am losing a good amount of people every day not coming in. I've had people walk in my store and say, how does this parking meter work? I explain it to them. They turn around and they say, I'll be back on Sunday. Then they never show back up. I'm bleeding money. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you coming in. Next to speak is Bob Jenkins.
Bob Jenkins, 16091 Orchard Avenue. I also had a business for 40 years at 915 Main Valley Information Systems. We currently have about 33 employees, and thank goodness that's free parking. But we've got a parking lot in front, and we've had to put, after 40 years of running that business, we had to put signs up telling people that this is not a public parking area. I do want to thank Ms. Register, or Councilwoman Register. When all this was happening, she was the only council member that contacted me asking my input. It was a little late, if I remember correctly, but my whole thing is I signed up as neutral. I want to see a conclusion to this. This is not good for our community, the arguments, the people, the upsets. We need to get this thing figured out. And my biggest thing is how it went about. I know I wrote a letter that turned in, I attended a meeting. All we had to do was, all this council had to do was listen to the people, because we all said, just enforce what was there. And I got word from, oh, well, then we'd have to hire somebody. Well, look at the mess that we're in now. And I know there's a lot of things on your plate, and the only thing that I would leave you with is, please, you know, there's a lot of, as you call, stakeholders. The biggest stakeholders that you guys should hold and listen to is the community. There's a lot of other people and a lot of big shots that can come into this town, but you need to listen to the community. Had you listened to us, we probably wouldn't be out here dealing with this right now. And you know, back, like I said, I've been here long enough. We had a person just walking down the street with a chalk marker, would chalk your tires, would write a ticket right there, put it on your windshield. How simple would that be? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Chuck Randolph.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Chuck Randolph. My residential address is 1424 Blaine. And I don't own any property in downtown Caldwell, but I've spent a number of years leading tours down there. Bob Jenkins was one of the great ones to open up his hotel up over Flying M. I no longer take walking, driving tours downtown. So I'm not trying to describe to people where in the world they can park. We do other parts of Caldwell. I do not do the downtown any longer. I'm a 78-year resident of Caldwell, so I know a little bit about the place. I served for 3 decades or so on Caldwell's Historic Preservation Commission, better part of 10 years on planning and zoning, a good portion of that as vice chair and then chairman. And then I was part of the early efforts at downtown revitalization, those that occurred before the contact with Roger Brooks, I believe it is, and the skating ribbon and all of that. I was out of it before there, but I saw a number of the things that we tried to get off the ground. I have watched some of the past testimony to this group, and I'm sure you're aware of that and thinking about it and have listened to it very carefully. But there's 6 points I'd like to make very quickly and trying not to replow all of that old ground. When I graduated from Caldwell High School in 1964, somehow 60 years ago, the downtown was a booming retail spot with an incredible number of furniture stores, of department stores, of shoe stores, of jewelry stores, you name it. That's what it was based on. Currently, it's based on a different model, and that's fine. They were both okay. But the same parking problem was there 60 years ago. Cars in front of a business all the time, same ones, day after day after day. And the city's answer was more parking meters, we had individual ones at that time, and raise the fines. So what I ask of you is don't repeat the mistakes of 6 decades ago, because people voted with their feet and Karcher Mall was the winner. They had acres of paved, new, lined, lighted, free parking. And downtown went into a spiral that we've only recently, with the work of a lot of people and Destination Caldwell, brought ourselves out of. Don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Second point, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of parking problem downtown. There are at least two kinds of businesses, I think. One that depends on foot traffic, and one, former Chief Allgood, this is a bad way to refer to it, but it's hit and run kind of businesses. I can order from Extreme Pizza. I can order from Twisted Fig, which I often do, and I can run in, grab my bags or box, and I'm gone very quickly. I don't use the facilities downtown for that. But there are those that I used to frequent until the middle of May, and that would be Abracadabra Antiques, Rostock Furniture, Spectacles, Shared Stories, Books, and the shops in the Oaks Brothers. Those are ones where they need their customers to spend time and spend money, obviously, and contribute to the economics of downtown. Third point is that it isn't just downtown, it's kind of divided. The far side of Blaine toward Cleveland has an entirely different feel than the downtown core. Parking there is very different. In the interest of time, real quickly, the rollout of this program was the worst thing I ever saw happen. I didn't attend the parking meetings, but I am trying to be a good resident of Caldwell and trying to keep my money in town where it's possible. The amount of information, misinformation that came out was despicable. The final thing here probably is take the fastest exit you can find from this non-agreement and then find a real parking expert. Go to some of the communities that have had these problems. Caldwell's not the only one that has faced these challenges. Go look at what other communities are doing. And finally, please do not insult the intelligence of the people of Caldwell by, I hear the buzzer, by saying that we're the best interest of Caldwell at mind. When the parking company brings a pickup to town, they wrap it with Parking Caldwell enforcement, and then they display Ada County plates. At least give me the illusion that the money's going to stay in Caldwell. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you for your service. Again, if you please refrain from the clapping, thank you. And thank you for your years of service, Chuck, through your community. Cassandra Crowell? If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Cassandra Crowell, 2806 Apollo Place, Caldwell. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us to speak tonight. My heart has always been in Caldwell. I am a 66-year resident of Caldwell. I worked at the Sheriff's Office, the Caldwell Police Department for several years, and for probation and parole for several years. So part of the reason I'm here is safety, because that's mainly what I was thinking of, even with the parking meters. For instance, my grandchildren are now starting to work, and I was thinking if they worked for one of the businesses right downtown and had to go for a free parking lot, they may be walking in the dark. And a year ago I broke my ankle, and I kind of had the same thing going on. I couldn't really get into downtown for all the fun things at Christmas time. So that was second on my mind. I am aware of several parcels that the city owns or leases, I suppose, but my suggestion, if we stayed with parking meters, would be to make all of those parking lots free so that anybody could park there. My parents actually had a store in downtown Caldwell. We did go through this very same thing when Caldwell was only 18,000 within the city limits. And may sound archaic, but we did have a person that would come along and chalk the tires, and we'd try to beat them to move my parents' car. So, I did contact Councilwoman Register about that, and I said, this may not be the greatest idea, but it may not be the worst idea either. And when I attended the city council meeting the other night, it was stated that we would need to pay $63,000 like right away. And I was told by Councilwoman Register that getting someone to chalk the tires would be too expensive. Hey, $63,000 may pay for a person to chalk those tires, I don't know. Let's see. So I talked about the $63,000, the safety issues. My personal recommendation at this time, I realize people park in front of businesses for hours on end. Well, if their tires were chalked, you wouldn't have to worry about that. They'd be checked continuously. But allowing people to park in front of businesses after dark, even the employees, when they need to, it may, save someone getting hurt downtown. And I have a lot of background in seeing things like that did happen. One of my concerns when I saw the slide come up about the new development coming in with only 29 stalls, I think we already have that problem with at least one of the buildings downtown where the developer did not submit, other than for the own residents of the apartments, no extra stalls that I know of. So that's something I think needs to be forced. If somebody's putting in a tall building downtown, they need to put in the parking, not us. I don't want to pay the extra $8.99 or whatever it is a month for parking garage. I think the developers need to pay that, and since our city bill doubled because of the forced new receptacles we have to use, the blue receptacles in our trash, my bill went up twice as much, so I don't want to pay anymore. And we do deliver Meals on Wheels to the building in the old Pennywise, the new apartments above Terry Riley at the old Pennywise. And as far as I know, they did not put in any extra parking plot spaces either. So I think that's something that needs to happen in the future. That would just be my recommendation. I thank you for all you do. And I would just suggest that at this time we table the parking meters till something's worked out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Ms.
Appreciate you
Ware.
being here.
I just wanted to address a couple of things. Just real quick, I apologize if well, it doesn't matter.
Can you stay up here?
No, well, I apologize if I gave you the wrong idea of what I meant.
Okay, that's all right. No, and I didn't take it negatively.
Okay, no, what I think I meant by having staff was that was the argument, that it was probably going to be too
Yeah,
expensive.
that's what it was told to you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry
but it was
if I didn't say
too,
that.
this was before I even knew that we had this parking compliance officer that could, because I just found that out like a week ago, that could potentially come into the downtown. Now that I know that we have that person on staff, maybe it's not such a big deal, but I wanted to ask Councilman Doty, did you say that there was a law against tracking tires now? Just to address it, to maybe make it make sense if it's not that easy.
I believe that there's some case law out there about chalking tires. I don't have it readily available tonight. I didn't know you were going to hit me with that. So it's not technically illegal. It's just that there's different methods that you can do that now. So,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. I just didn't know if it was completely outlawed, if we should.
I know of no state law that says that,
Okay,
just
all right,
case
perfect.
law if someone does it improperly.
All right. I'm gonna get my chalk out.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mike, I believe it's
Thank you.
Arocha. If I mispronounced your last name, I apologize.
No, you did a really good job. Good job.
It's good to see you again.
Hey, nice to see you too. I was like, hey. My name is Mike Arocha. I am the owner, my wife and I own Gandolfo's Deli in the Treasure Valley. We recently acquired the Caldwell location a couple of months back. The reason we acquired that location, because we truly believe in the food and the quality of service that Gandolfo's can provide with good management and good people leaders. We believe we have that in place at this point. The reason I am up here is because our projected growth is down 25% since purchase. We were expected to get 25%. We were expected to have a 25% higher margin than we currently do. Now, that could be attributed to a variety of different factors. But the one consistent that we constantly hear within our deli is parking. It's the number one topic that comes up consistently over and over and over. Now, that's up my number one concern. My second concern, which is actually my top priority, is the safety of our employees. We do employ several teenagers there. It's a deli, so it's a good job for teenagers to have. When the Winter Carnival comes open, we do plan on extending our hours a little bit later. I cannot have my employees walking across a dark lot, regardless of the lights, to their cars. I would implore you at this point to pull the project until a better solution can be found. And also, if it's within reality, to also forgive any sort of parking tickets that have been given, because we've also heard that in our deli as well. So thank you again for allowing me an opportunity to speak.
I'm sorry, where is the deli?
It's actually right around the corner. It's like,
Is it not in this building though?
No.
if you walk out this door and take 25 steps that way, you'll hit it. It's right next to the Still, the Chop Shop.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And that's another issue that we've also had. There's not walking, it's not street facing. You have to come into the plaza
Yeah.
in order to get that.
So that, yeah, okay.
So it does have an impact on us.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Robert Salas? Is Robert here? Robert Salas? Did he leave? Okay. Doesn't, okay. Cindy Smith. Is Cindy here? Yes. Okay.
My name is Cindy Smith, and I live at 5624 Buckboard Avenue, Caldwell. I just want to say that I don't have a business here, but I go to one almost every day, and that today, actually, we went downtown, my friend and I, and there was like 10 cars in the entire Main Street, Kimball, all around. And we've noticed from last year to this year, how even during the summer, the people weren't there because they didn't want to pay parking. I took my grandsons to the splash pad. There was them, the two, and probably 4 other kids all day long. That's all there was for like 3 hours. So people just aren't coming because of these parking meters. And my question is, like, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, but all the phases coming up, why don't we not have so many buildings and build parking structures? Like when this hotel, wherever it is, over here or there. Anyway, when it came in right last year right during the Christmas thing that they do here, I thought that was going to be a parking structure, and it ended up being hotels. And now all the bottoms that are supposed to be boutiques and stuff, no one's rented, not one. So it's just kind of a waste, and there's empty lots here instead of building more buildings. And I agree with what that lady said. If they build the building, they better have enough parking. Because I remember as a kid, when they built houses, they had to build a school with it. So these people need to build parking with their buildings. That's all.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Appreciate you being here. Shannon Dakin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I want to do a really quick thing, really quick, before I speak. I want to give this to Debbie Geyer. She has fielded phone calls and emails and all kinds of stuff about this issue, and she does it with a smile on her face. She is a true Caldwellite, and I really appreciate her being here. So just a little
Thank you
thing.
so much.
Thank you for your time for letting us come to these meetings, by the way. Just a couple things. I want to know why one business downtown is allowed 3 hours of free parking for their people, their customers. And I have it on my phone. I took a picture of it because I thought, are you kidding me? And I found this out because when I came down here for the parade the other day for our little Olympian boxer, it said 3 hours free parking. And I'm like, awesome. So I got to catch the parade. And then I went over to this new sushi place over here to try it out. And no free parking. So why is one business allowed to have free parking for their customers and the rest of them don't? Nor do any of the other business owners around here.
What business is that?
Indian Creek Steakhouse right behind them. It's right behind them.
I think is that one of the free lots?
It's not, is it a free? No, it's 3 hours parking. Free, yeah, 3 hours of free parking. And then after that, you have to pay. But it's right directly behind theirs. And I heard that, just rumors. So I'm not even going to bring that up. But anyhow, I think it needs to be free for everybody. At least a couple hours or an hour. But 15 minutes is not long enough. When I was at this place over here, I watched a man and a lady get out to go try this new business. They went up to that parking meter. They got frustrated, walked away, got in their car, and left. How can we support a brand new business if we can't even make something feasible to use? The other thing is too, the movie theater. Nowadays, I don't know if you guys have been to movies lately, but a lot of them are over 3 hours. So by the time that you walk in, purchase your ticket, got to get all your gee-dunk and all that good stuff, to eat. You got a 3-hour movie, you got to get up and leave to go pay for more parking because you can't park anything over 3 hours. So it has to be kind of taken in consideration maybe about where businesses are and how much they need to have. The other thing is, I'm going to try to be nice about this, but each and every one of you voted for this thing. If I'm not correct, I watched it on that thing up there. You are all accountable for it. Somebody didn't do their research until after the fact. So you have a lot of things coming up. You have new businesses coming into town. And I was told by why we don't make these developers pay for parking when they have new businesses come in. It's because it's not in the bylaws or the rules or whatever. There's nothing that states that they have to provide parking. And that needs to be changed. I don't know if it starts on your level or if it needs to go to the developers or to the city engineering or whoever. But that needs to be changed. We need to get that in writing. If they're going to bring in a business, they need to bring in adequate parking, period. I think that's about it. I appreciate you guys' time, and I want to thank everybody that's here, all the business owners. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Because if it wasn't for them, people like me who have been here 25 plus tax, living, wouldn't have a place to come down to Caldwell. I mean, we wouldn't have great food. We wouldn't have good entertainment. And so each and every one of you need to do your diligence, and research things before you start voting on stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. I think that Councilor Ister may have a question for you.
I have a question. Well, actually, you can nod if this is right, but I'm pretty sure that lot that's free behind Indian Creek is open to anybody. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it is a free public lot. It just happens to be closer to Indian Creek. But on this agenda that we're looking at, or the talking points, number 5, we had suggested maybe converting the 6th Avenue paid parking lot into free parking. So there's free parking on the west side of the downtown too. So I'm going to guess you would be in support of that. Having a free lot on the other side of downtown too for everybody to use, which is the Bennett's machine lot, right?
The old, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that already bought by another?
Is that one of the ones that's being built on?
Or Biscuits and Hogs?
Not currently. Yeah, it's open.
Yeah, right. But we charge for it right now.
We do not.
So Right, but the suggestion was to make that free, so we haven't heard a lot of people hit on the discussion points, so I'm just gonna.
That would probably help.
On that side, I mean.
Yeah.
Then you're absolutely right about the 3-hour thing, which is also on here, number 1. I am in support of extending that because I agree with you, like on the movies or just dinner and ice cream or with the skating coming up, but also like you, I think about like the hair salons because my daughter does my hair, and when she puts my extension in, it's like a 6-hour ordeal, and I am not running outside with half a head of extensions, and foil and whatever, running down the street trying to move my car. So I totally get the conveniences of that stuff too. And then you are right, I think Councilor Doty was off council at the time on that October meeting, so it would have been all of us minus Councilor Dittenberg, but add in Councilor McGee. And we did vote on it based on the information we had, and then as time went on and we started kind of learning more stuff, that vote changed and people started, asking more questions. So I appreciate that, but
it should have been tabled and really thoroughly investigated.
Yeah.
And you've got a lot of other things coming up. And you're all new, except for one. He's kind of the dinosaur of the group.
And that's and like we saw in the video, he asked, and we thought we had, we thought we were having a whole nother discussion.
But it was quick.
And,
it was a quick decision.
Yeah.
And so I think, I know I'm taking other people's time, so.
No, but I just want to like clear the air about it because Councilor Williams and myself both asked for extra time at one point, and we didn't get it.
You're the council.
Yeah.
You should have gotten it. You guys run this meeting. You guys are the ones to vote, and he's the decision or the tiebreaker.
Well, it wasn't just up to him, though. In his defense, it was a council vote, but.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. It's council vote, and then he should be the tiebreaker, so. At least that's how it's been in the past. I don't know how it is now, so.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming and speaking on these points. I think those are important.
Thank you, Shannon, appreciate that. Deb Sandsim, I'll let you finish that when you come up, if you don't mind. State that for the record, and then your address, then you'll have your 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Deb Sandberg, and I'm at 107 South Kimball Avenue. I have a few comments and kind of just things to say. I'm wondering about the available space that we have, which on his slideshow said that we were 85% at the end of 2023. So if we're at 85% and you consider that full, and then if you think about that in one canister, and then you think about giving an occupancy certificate to a restaurant or a store or a shop, and you say you can have 110 and you can have 40 and you can have 50. What's your occupancy certificate for parking? Because you are way over that. And every one of you has the power to stop every single one of these projects that you have on the boards right now that do not have parking available. There's no parking for them. So now you're going to push us out even farther. This is a small family town trying to do small family business. And what happens in these cities is you get your pants hot. And you have where you think about the citizens for a while, and then all of a sudden money comes in. How many millions did you get for Tillian to come in without parking? There was a number at a meeting we went to. It was a big one. 40? What was it? You said the number. Around $40 million. So you just went, woohoo, $40 million, let's take it. Now you got a couple of hotels coming in and another big restaurant coming in, and there's no parking for them. So you've gone from thinking about the people to thinking about the dollars. This is a small family town, and it needs to stay that way. That's why you were voted where you are, is because you believed in that, and you're changing your belief. We're not happy about that. So, if you keep the parking, there are some issues. On Thursday of last week, I think her name is Adele. Ophelia, right there. Yes. We stood in the 3-hour free parking lot on Friday at 11 o'clock, and there were 4 cars. Hers, mine, and 2 others. That was Friday afternoon last week. Where were the people? They didn't want to come here. Because even if they come for 3 hours of free parking, they have to put all their data in the machine. The machines aren't working, they can't see the screen because of the sunshine, they're uncomfortable, they don't know how to use it. Technology is going to be an issue for several of us in this generation, but regardless, there needs to be assistance with that. If you're going to keep it, I recommend trash the whole thing. If you're going to keep the parking lots and have the employees go farther, there are some serious issues to think about. There's no security, there's no cameras. Cars that do park in the free lot, when the free lot on Kimball on the other side of the tracks is full, we're forced to park forward. We get tickets. There's people who have handicap stickers that are told they can park for 8 hours anywhere with a handicap sticker. That is not true. They get fines for that. There's no cameras, there's no sidewalks. We witnessed 2 people fall on that railroad track. And when I go to a BID meeting and a Destination Caldwell meeting, they say it's city council. City council says it's the railroad. And all these people are shoving this information back and forth because, like all these other people before me have said, there was no plan. But there's a lot of finger pointing about whose deal it is here and whose deal it is there. So there's that. So there's no sidewalk. So if you want us to park all the way in this employee area, who's going to shovel the walk when they do put it in? When you redid the railroad track on 9th, you put the sidewalk in there. When you redid it on Kimball, you didn't put the sidewalk in there. So who lost on that part of the deal? Somebody forgot to put that in their bid. So there's no camera, there's no security, there's no sidewalks, there's nobody to remove the snow because it's their job. No, it's not our job, it's their job. No, it's not our job, it's their job. So now you're going to have all of us, whoever we are, walking from these lots that are not free across where there's no snow. Who's responsible for that? Do we have to walk on the street because the sidewalks aren't done and the streets get plowed? That's a safety issue for your people, the small town people that support you. So there's that. Plus there's trash everywhere and weeds everywhere. You want us to pay $40 to park in a place full of trash and weeds? Who's taking care of that? You got nobody taking care of that. And what about the QR fees? People have gotten their little QR code, which has been violated and stolen and all that stuff now. It's not $1 to park there. It's $1.55 to park there. And if you look at the QR code when it's not your time to park there, you get charged the $1.55 for looking at a QR code when it's not there.
So if you go ahead and wrap up your last statement, that'd be great.
I think that's all I really have to say, but you guys were voted in by small town people who wanted to say small town. Stop looking at the dollar signs for the big companies coming in here, because you're ruining our small town. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Appreciate your time. Andrew, is it Henges? Okay, Andrew, if you could just state your name and address as well for the record, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
It's Andrew Henges. My wife and I own the building at 708 Main. And a lot of what I want to present has in some fashion been said, but I'll reiterate it because I'm in agreement with it. Prior to paid parking, you could stand out on Main, and probably Wednesday through Saturday, by midday at the latest, it was completely occupied. It was full, not just of cars in parking places, but also people on the sidewalks coming in and out of businesses. I've had the same experience as someone else noted about traffic on the plaza and the kids in the water feature, that it used to be just full of kids and people, parents hanging out, and there are days now where you see maybe 2 or 3 kids out there. So I think, kind of summarizing at the beginning, I'm going to lead with, it seems to me that there are so many problems so quickly snowballing by the poor implementation of this system that it would be best to turn it off before it gets even worse, even more quickly, until some solutions are found to figure that out. My observation and experience has been that people actually prefer to hunt for parking when the parking is full on Main and nearby areas, rather than pay for it. When you come down to downtown and see the streets full and people bustling on the sidewalks, you get the sense that this is a place you want to be, and you're willing to hunt for parking because you know it's busy and you know that's part of the deal. But people are avoiding the area entirely because of all of the issues that we're talking about tonight relating to parking. I think also the 15-minute free parking in most areas is really inadequate. That's a nice way of saying it. I cannot imagine how that does not negatively impact businesses that are near those areas. And I also think that whatever greater time period might be available should be designated at different streets rather than the entire area, because that would allow people to move around, do things, and not be limited by 15 minutes for the day. I think we need better info online. The website currently has missing info and/or incorrect info. It's been very difficult to navigate the new system. We've spoken to a number of council members, city officials, and car park employees, none of whom seem able to provide either comprehensive answers or in some cases answers at all to questions about the system and its use. And personally, I have to wonder if council members and city officials have utilized the system throughout the area and for more than 2 to 3 hours to fully experience its function or lack thereof, as those of us who work each day of the week in downtown Caldwell have and do. Even car park employees at various levels that we have spoken with have volunteered that the program was poorly implemented and rolled out. So parking enforcement on some level may be appropriate at some point for encouraging commerce rather than camping in downtown Caldwell, but this system was, as we've all heard and noted, poorly rolled out and implemented compared to other locations without a real understanding of its effects or consequences by city authorities. With that in mind, as others have mentioned, Caldwell is not Boise. And we will likely lose much of the charm of Caldwell as a destination if it fails to safeguard its unique Americana character. Changes as sweeping as a similar parking program must be much more carefully researched and tested before implementation. So again, you've got a big problem here. I think the way to stop the ball from rolling down the hill is to turn it off, at least until some answers can be found or a different solution that's better and more appropriate can be determined.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you for coming tonight. So we are going to go ahead and take a 10-minute recess, give a little break for the council members, for everyone. We'll be back here again in 10 minutes to continue with the testimony. Got the restroom in? We're good to go? Oh, there you go. We are going to reconvene. Are we good up on the video? So we are there. So before we do jump in, we just do have a few more people that have signed up to testify. I do want to thank everyone for your courteousness tonight, if that is a real word, I don't know. But the decorum that you've maintained, I really do appreciate that. And it's helped move this meeting along very well. And I think allowed people to be able to share their opinions freely. So I do appreciate that. I want to thank you for taking that seriously. And it just shows what a great place Caldwell is, that we can agree to disagree and look at this, and we appreciate the feedback tremendously, all of us, and looking at what is the best thing for Caldwell moving forward, and what do the people want for their downtown. So I want to personally thank you for that and for maintaining the decorum of this meeting. So thank you for that. So before we do jump in, I do just want to ask if there is anybody needing interpretation, we would move forward with them first. We can allow our wonderful Deputy Clerk Ellen to head home, take care of some family matters on that. So is there anyone left to speak that would need interpretation services? Okay, I do not see anyone. So Ellen, thank you so much for being here. You're welcome to disperse. Thank you so much. Yeah, guess that's true. So hay alguien que necesita ayuda con el inglés del español? Is there anybody that needs help translating from English or Spanish to English? Okay, there's not. Very good. There, now we got it covered. So, okay. So we're going to continue moving forward. Again, appreciate you maintaining the time limits on that, so we'll continue with that. So our next person that did sign up to speak is Christy Henges. So if you'll please come forward again, if you could state your name and address for the record, and then your 5 minutes of time.
My name is Christy Henges. We live at 608 Everett Street, and I'm also the owner of a building at 708 Main Street. That's the Steunenberg building. My dad actually purchased that in the 80s, and he passed away in 2022. And while dealing with his estate, one of the decisions we made was, this is the last thing I would ever want to sell. Not just because it's sentimental, and I grew up, my grandparents lived on Kimball, south of the park, and I grew up coming up Main Street when Caldwell looked nothing like it looks now. I have fond memories, though, of that building and of Caldwell. And when I was younger, my dad always said, he literally would say, I know Caldwell can be a destination. And now we have Destination Caldwell as a group, and they do a phenomenal job of bringing people in to that area. And I love that. It's one of the neatest things to see. Conversely, we have a building, a commercial building also that my dad owned in Peoria, Arizona. We're selling that because the city's not doing what they could be doing to put money into the area and keep it up and bring in the right kinds of businesses. So it was a hard decision to sell that. I actually was born and raised in Arizona, but we bought a house this last month in Caldwell, the one on Everett Street, and we love it. We can walk to downtown, which we sometimes do. The problem I'm running into as a building owner is, so that building is halfway renovated. My dad had been in the middle of a down to the studs renovation when he passed away. So when we have contractors come in, as of May, they can't park more than the 3 hours. They don't always need to park there, but sometimes they do. And this last week, I called and talked to first Maggie Hessness at the city, and then she said, you need to talk to Car Park, and then back to the city. And I eventually talked to Ophelia, and the solution they said that we have now is I can pay for a right-of-way permit, which is $110 per day. I can't pay $2,500 a month for my contractors to park. I already pay over $20,000 in building taxes and BID taxes. I can't afford that. That's just not in my budget. So we're asking for things like, we're finishing the building, and I take that very seriously. It's a historic building. We're doing everything we can to make it add value to the area and bring in businesses and tenants in that building that add value to the area. But we've already had tenants that are potential tenants concerned about the parking. And I'm a little freaked out because when you throw out the number of $1 million to renovate a historic building, that's not inaccurate. That is absolutely true. And I can't spend that money and then go, well, we would have tenants, but their people have nowhere to park. So one of my main questions is, why aren't we building a parking garage? And if that number of $8 or whatever a month in extra, taxes for my house, I will gladly pay that. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but I would much rather see something like a parking garage where we're utilizing the space to the best advantage and just bringing in more spaces, because the issue isn't paying for parking. That is part of it. It's we don't have enough spaces. So how are we going to solve that? Then back to the paying for parking. It doesn't sound like a lot when you look at $1 per hour, but my husband and I are there a lot, and we go to Flying M and we get lunch, nearby. And, I think about people that may be on a really strict budget. If you come down there for 3 hours a day, that's $150 a month. So people aren't doing that. And even though not everybody's coming down for 3 hours every single day of the month, but it's still something to consider that people are making the choice to not come. And regarding the 3-hour time limit, I think that needs to be addressed. On one hand, it's good because, yes, it discourages camping and people being there all day, every day. But that needs to maybe be stretched a little bit for people that want to come from Boise and say, oh, we're going to get coffee, and then we're going to shop, and then we're going to have lunch, we're going to see a movie, whatever. That is limiting, and not everybody can or wants to go across the tracks, which is a whole other issue. Why don't we have a safe way to cross the tracks? But that's another whole issue. But again, I would ask the council to think about having a parking garage. And then lastly, perhaps a trolley. That was something my dad was a part of in the 80s. Could we have a trolley that goes around for, and picks people up? I found in his things the original card that had the time that the trolley would stop at the different places. And then lastly, I read this recently and I thought, I know my time's almost up, sorry. It's easier to fool somebody than to convince them they have been fooled. And in my opinion, a mistake has been made. But it's not okay. It's not only okay to admit that a mistake has been made. I think it's your duty based on the feedback of the taxpayers. It's not working. Let's go back to the drawing board and figure out something that works. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Christy. Really appreciate that. Next up is LV Buzz, and I'll let you say the last name when you come up. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
I'm Buzz Beaucamp. I live at 15244 Bald Eagle Avenue. It's out by Mallard Park. I submitted a letter on Friday, so I will stand with those statements. I hope you read that. I live 5.6 miles to the Caldwell post office. I live 7.4 miles to the Nampa post office. I prefer to come to Caldwell. And it used to be that we would come to Caldwell and we'd go to Grit, we'd go to Amano's, we'd go to the Chop Shop, we'd go to the Still, we'd go to Indian Creek. We don't go there anymore. We drive 7.4 miles, which is not a very pleasant drive, but we go to Nampa because there's free parking. And so it suits us to go do free parking. Because you go to a restaurant, you're there for, 2.5 hours. So we just don't come to Caldwell anymore. I drive through, throw my mail in the Caldwell box and go back home. So, and I'm a little bit flummoxed. I sold construction equipment for 20 years. And when I started that, municipalities needed approval when you did anything over $25,000. And nowadays, I believe it's 150, or have they moved it to 200,000? But there are laws in the state of Idaho that you have to have all your items in line before a council approves a contract. And by what Ms. Register said, I don't think that you have done your due diligence. So please, remove the meters, come up with a better thing. My girlfriend comes from Parma to a nail shop 3 doors from the Caldwell post office. And she says, parking meters, what am I going to do? And I said, well, it's a parking meter. take a handful of quarters and feed the machine, go in, do your thing, and then leave. So we looked at the parking meters, and I said, well, I'm not using that. So, I don't come to Caldwell much anymore. We'll still go to Kraft because there's no parking meters out by Kraft. So with that, I'll stand for any questions that you might have for me.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any questions this time, but I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us and share that.
Thank you.
Tina Unger? Tina here, Tina Unger of Cleveland Boulevard. Okay. Moni? And if you could state your name and address for the record, and then you have
I
your 5
think
minutes.
all you guys know me by now. Moni Contreras, 517 Main Street. My parents are the owner of the Mexican store on Main Street, the one that has no parking, the one that got all their parking taken away. Anyways, I have a couple questions. If I can ask questions, I don't know if that's what the workshop's for, to ask questions or just to say something. Am I able to ask questions?
So I would recommend stating or giving your testimony first, and then if you have questions after. you
Okay,
can-
so I'm just gonna ask a
For-
couple
for the whole
questions, just so, even though you don't need, even though you're not gonna answer them. So I have a question. Who's the owner of the parking behind Indian Creek, behind my store, behind, basically all downtown on the railroad tracks? I believe it's not the cities, I believe it's the railroad tracks, right?
So the city leases that, if I'm not mistaken, is that correct? Mr.
Yeah, so
Michael?
that's
the
not
city
ours.
leases
Okay,
that.
so what would happen if they come back in 2 years and say, hey, we're gonna take all our parking? What's gonna happen to all that parking downtown? What's gonna happen with that 75-year contract that the city signed with Tillen, I don't know if I'm saying the right name, with the apartments, that you guys signed a 75-year contract to provide 75 spaces for them? What's gonna happen to that? Are we gonna have to pay for that? Is there like a fee that's the city's gonna have to pay for for basically not going with the contract? Now another thing, Indian Creek, I love Indian Creek Steakhouse, but Indian Creek has the 3-hour parking. I have 0 parking. I got all that parking taken away. Yes, we have the parking spaces for my employees, but how about for my customers? I don't have 3-hour parking. Why? Is it because I'm Mexican? Is it because I'm a woman? What is the issue? Now, another thing, I'm super shaky because I had a Red Bull before I came because I'm a full-time mom. And I have to get my daughter to school at 7:30 in the morning, then I have to go back, take my kid to daycare. I work full-time, and guess what I'm doing on a Monday night? I'm here. My daughter had a basketball game at 6. I had to drop her off. The gym wasn't even open at 5:15 in Middleton because I had to be here. Why? Because this is important to me, because I'm losing money. The city is losing money. Business owners are losing money. Why? Because of the decision you guys make. We've been here. I've been here October. I was here in December. I was here, I don't even know how many meetings I've been here, and it's the same thing over and over again. There's no answers at all. There's only questions. Diane, you did an amazing speech. There's no answers. So what's gonna happen? Am I wasting what? 3 hours, 3.5 hours right now? I still have to go home and cook dinner. For what? For you guys to be like, oh yeah, we're gonna go back to the parking meters. The city's growing. It's a parking issue. If it was such a parking issue, why did you guys allow a huge apartment building to go in Caldwell, in the middle of Caldwell, if it's such a parking issue, if the issue is parking? I remember you guys saying, oh, but we have 36,000 visitors during Winter Wonderland. Currently, the hours are from like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? So what's gonna happen when November comes along, December, and people aren't coming at 6 o'clock? They're gonna wait until 7 o'clock to come see the lights, because you're not gonna come see the lights at 3 in the afternoon. So how are you guys gonna be making that money? And I'm done. So I don't know if you guys can answer some of those questions, or is it gonna be like the same, oh, thank you for your speech, we appreciate it, type of thing? Because that's what always happens, right?
So
we
so
never
we
get
can
answers.
definitely answer those questions. If you want to, we'd want to discuss with our attorney some of those questions you had and get those correct. So we can definitely meet afterwards and talk about those.
Okay, but is the
answers. So-
attorney going to know the questions? Because the questions that Diane registered asked weren't answered by him because
So
he
we'll
didn't
need
know.
to do some research on that, but we can
Okay.
definitely we have your contact info, so we can reach out and set up a time to get
Yeah, I
together
get
and
that all
answer
the
those
time.
questions. So,
Nobody has contacted me but Diane Williams, and thank you so much for texting me back. I never texted you back. I was really busy. But, okay, yeah, same thing like always. No answers. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Actually, more of a statement and a question than for the mayor. I just want to be clear that we sort of inherited that Tillian project, so that was already there. The council's taking a lot of heat for the parking, so I don't want to double down. But, Mayor, all of these things that we're discussing tonight, whether we decide to pause the meters or make these changes or whatever, when is this going to be voted on? Because initially, when I put these suggestions forward, Councilor Doty responded, and I thought your email said that to go through each one, have a discussion on each one, and then vote. If we're not voting tonight, when are we voting?
so we will discuss that, the council will discuss that after we get through all the testimony on that, so we should have an idea on that, but I want to get through everybody's testimony first and kind of see what direction the council wants to go.
Okay, well, just so the community knows that I am going to be out of town at the second council meeting in September, so I'm going to push for earlier in the month. And it's not something that I can avoid, anyway. So I'm going to push for the first of the month to try, hopefully take a vote on some of the stuff or see what we're doing. And hopefully we'll be voting first thing in October on the contract is my hope.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Mayor. Briefly, there's a dicho que también los burros se cansan. Listen, you're being heard,
Yeah.
okay? Obviously, I'm alone. I can't make you promises, but please don't think you're not being heard.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. At least from 2-3 people here.
Thank you, Counselor. Holly Olson? And if you could state your name and address for the record as well.
I'm Holly Olson. We live at 5016 Danville, Pennsylvania Park, Caldwell. I have a couple questions. I agree with almost every single thing that people have said today. I know jobs are suffering. I know people will go down the street to shop if they have to be inconvenienced. I know that parking meters are rarely, if ever, money makers. And ultimately, this dissuades people from visiting. And I'm sad by that because I love Caldwell. It has been my home, and I don't want to see it turn into a ghost town because people are moving to other places to shop or to eat or to go to movies. I would like to ask if the contractors are actually from Idaho, because I know there's been a lot of people from the East Coast or from Chicago or from out of state, which their money is affecting the lives of the people who live here in Idaho, and it's not staying here. The money is not staying here. The people that want to put the big solar farms in Nampa, that's not even an Idaho situation either. That money is leaving our state, sucking out our own finances that we really should have staying in state, working on some of the things that Idaho needs to work on. I really think that we've got to do something for the business owners. I think we're moving backwards instead of encouraging growth. And it just, can we get a lawyer that knows contracts? Can we get somebody that knows how to unravel this mess that we're in? Can somebody give us a guided, clear path to take? We need parking situations. I know there's not even a question of anyone here about that. But can a lawyer or a group of lawyers or real estate law or contract law, or, I mean, we got to get somebody that can give us more direction. And I know you're doing your job the best you can, but sometimes we need more experienced people in those lines of work. Thank you for letting us come tonight and talk. I've been very impressed with the people who have come, very intelligent questions, very intelligent offers of solutions, and I really hope that you look into your hearts and do the very best thing you can for Caldwell. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate that. Nancy Roberts.
Good evening, I'm Nancy Roberts. I live at 823 Albany Street in Caldwell. My husband Robert Roberts and I have a business here in Caldwell, this R&M Steel Company. And while we're not downtown, we do have clients and prospective clients and visitors that come to see us at the business. And we don't take them to downtown Caldwell anymore. We don't come here for dinners. We don't come here for walking around and seeing what's going on in town. We just don't. There isn't any way I can get a group of people that I'm trying to impress or even just get fed reasonably well to come to Caldwell now because of the parking situation. We've talked about a parking garage for how long? You don't do it. We've talked about the parking meters being a problem for how long? We don't do it. Once you lose the people coming to Caldwell, they're not going to come back. They're going to be loyal to the new places they've gone to, and they're comfortable there, and now they're used to traveling there. They're not coming back. You're going to have to rely on new people, which is what you seem to keep doing. You're having more and more apartment buildings built. You don't have the water for it. You don't have the parking down here for it. You don't have the shopping for it. There's hardly any essential business downtown. Downtown's playtown. You come here to relax and play. That's all it is. But you've made it almost impossible. And we've had meeting after meeting after meeting, and nothing has changed. And I really applaud Diana Register for all of the work that she's done to research and put in some really intelligent thought about trying to find out what has gone on, what needs to go on, and she asks you questions, and we watch you give her blank stares. You do not answer her. Is it because you are afraid to say something in public, or you just don't know still? And to ask the attorney hasn't gone anywhere other than he would like to have a closed-door meeting. He doesn't want to discuss it here. The fact that he does not know the ins and outs intimately of those contracts and this issue is not acceptable. Not acceptable at all. And the actions or inaction of this council, not acceptable. You're not doing your jobs. You can't be doing your jobs when you're courting the new dollar, courting the new people, and not coordinating it so we can see, well, what do we have as a whole down here? And what do we have that is going to continue to generate income, not just all the flashy stuff up front. It just isn't any good. You go headlong into projects and just create a dearth of problems behind us and go, well, you know, that's what happens. I'm sorry, it's not acceptable. It's not. Your smiles and your nods are not gonna cut it. And if you want to be hired for anything other than the dog catcher, and maybe not that, you better get something done. You're losing this town. And it's a nice town. It's a really, really nice town. It's a nice place to do business. But we don't do it in Caldwell anymore. And that's a lot of people. We have people coming into our company from all over the world. And they would like to see what small town USA is like. And a lot of them put pretty big bucks into it. China's buying up our farmland left and right. But we don't bring them here. We take them to Nampa, we take them to Boise. It's a little more trouble, but it's less trouble than those stinking meters. And if you think that we're irritated because we had to stand there in the hot, just wait until it's snowing and icy. And I'm not going to walk, as a woman, an old lady now, I'm not going to walk downtown or get from a dark parking lot to some place or go to the theater after dark, which I like to do things like that, but I don't do them here anymore. No. There's a lot of things you do need, and you're not doing them. You need to have cameras for security. You need to have more police officers going through the town and watching things that are happening. You need to have better sidewalks. You know all the things that we need, and you are not doing it. And having you just smile at us and say, thanks for showing up, I'm sorry, is not cutting it. It's not acceptable. And you need to get that attorney off his butt. You really do. And to have her ask that many questions this long, I would have fired the lot of you a long time ago. And how can we get employees in when they're not going to walk through the snow and the rain and the heat? Jobs are open everywhere. You need to get this done. You need to get rid of those stinking parking meters. And you need to require every single business that might come in here to have adequate parking for themselves plus. That's what you need to do. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
I don't see any, so, okay.
Thank you.
And so please refrain. And Rosif, I believe, Both. I apologize if I did not say that correct. You can come and correct me and put your address on the record, please.
Hello, my name is Joseph Bora, and I live at 15303 Roca Avenue. The reason I'm coming here is that because I was here at the open house when we were discussing meters. At that time, my wife and I visited, and we voiced our concern about the parkings and about businesses and things. And I kind of got a stern reprimand. Now, you're wrong, pretty much, from a person in the audience. I knew at that time that if you put meters, people will not come. I'm very involved in my community. And I ask people, and they tell me, it's like, no, I will not go downtown Caldwell. It's just like me. I used to come on Tuesday night farmer's market. I go to Nampa. And so many other places that I used to come, like Bonnabelle Coffee and so on, and Indian Creek, and I will not come down because I don't want to pay for the parking. Like so many people have said, Caldwell is not Meridian, Caldwell is not Eagle, Caldwell is very unique in its own. We would like to keep it that way. Also, I would like to talk about the contract. Thank you for putting all that shed our light on it. For 20 plus years, I did contract. I was a contract administrator for one of the very large government agencies. That contract that you have in place is not a contract. You can have a contract and have verbal agreements. You can have a true contract, and pretty much when you establish a contract, you don't have all the pieces in place. You can't. I'm honestly surprised that you are not in the papers. I'm honestly surprised that you haven't been sued because it's not a contract. That's a quasi-contract. It is not. If I've done anything like that when I worked for a state agencies, I would have been fired or reprimanded or both. It is not. So it's got to be. I'd rather pay the penalties. I haven't looked at the terms. I don't have any way to look at the contract to know the terms and conditions of the contract. But I'd rather pay penalties if we have to end it, and you pay a penalty once, than to be in the hole for this year, next year, and who knows for how long to pay if the meters don't make any money. So it is that simple. It is not, like I said, it's not a contract, and it should end because it's not, to me, it's not a legal contract. Thank you for your.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here. So that is everyone that is signed up on the sheets. Is there anyone else that wishes to testify? Yes, if you please come forward. And if you could, please state your name and address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Horacio Castillo. I have a small restaurant in Caldwell, 313 South Kimball Avenue. We used to be full on lunches. We count the tables now to 4 to 5. And at dinner time, people wait until it's almost 7, but it's still missing a lot of customers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. And I saw a few other hands. Yeah, so did you already spoke, correct? Or no, you did, okay. And if you could please state your name for the record.
Ben Weber, 19320 Goldfinch Way, Caldwell. I know this is superficial, but I grew up here. I was born at the Caldwell Hospital, and I drive down now, and it doesn't feel like small town. It feels like just the parking meters are out of place. They don't look like small town. It's ruining the aesthetic that we have here. And I think I'm impressed with the growth and the comeback of downtown. It's like, I remember when I was a little kid, there was still stuff going on downtown, and it just kept going downhill and downhill and downhill. And I'm impressed that it's been coming back the way it has. And then we ruin the aesthetic by putting in some really ugly meters. And I know that that's totally superficial, but it's true. They ruined the look of the town. And I would probably be tempted by a $500,000 income coming in every year by whoever sold you on these things. But that's not the reality, and it's not looking like the town I grew up in. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, appreciate that. I saw one or two, this gentleman here, and then we'll go there, then in the back. And if you just state your name and address, please, for the record.
I did sign up, I must have got missed, but my name is Levi Skogsberg, 14625 Dartmoor Street in Caldwell, but I really live at 913 Arthur over here because I'm the general manager of the Caldwell Lux Movie Theater. And I've been tasked by my ownership to kind of relay some of our concerns. Since the parking meters were installed, we have received a large volume of complaints from our customers. Many are expressing frustration and anger about the inconvenience and the additional cost. An extra $3 doesn't seem like a lot to a lot of people, but when people are already complaining about a 25-cent popcorn price increase that they notice, $3 is a lot. With some indicating that they will no longer attend our theater or will do so less frequently. These complaints are not just passing frustrations. Loyal customers who have supported our theater for years are now reconsidering their patronage because of the parking situation and heading over to Nampa. This erosion of customer loyalty could have long-lasting effects on our business. The introduction of the parking meters has reduced customer traffic. Patrons tell us directly that they are deterred from visiting downtown due to added inconvenience and cost of parking. Unlike some businesses with shorter customer visits and kind of more of a turnstile approach, a movie typically takes 2 to 3 hours plus, and many people come and they want to go dinner and a movie is the old adage, right? The limited parking times and the need to feed the meters are not conducive to our business model, leading to customer dissatisfaction and loss of revenue. In prior discussions with the city over the past few years, we were assured that the parking spaces around the theater would be allocated with enough time to allow customers to enjoy both dinner and a movie. However, the current limit is insufficient. Since the installation of the parking meters, we've observed a measurable decline in revenue and attendance, and not all of that is attributed to the state of the economy right now. In fact, there have been several weeks or even months over this summer where the box office is actually peaked over last year, and we're still down. The added parking fees make us less competitive compared to theaters in nearby areas with parking options. The theater isn't the only business that's suffering. Our customers frequently dine at nearby restaurants or shop at local shops before or after their movie experience. The decline in our attendance is likely affecting other downtown businesses as well. We urge the council to reevaluate the parking meter policy in general.
Thank you, appreciate that. Gentleman in the green shirt, could you please come forward? And again, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ryan Hawkins. I live on East Omaha Street. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I know it's late. I know we want to get home. I'll be quick. So first comment I think I have is on, it would have really benefited us if after this was started, somebody ran and got a survey and did some stats and statistics on the companies all in Caldwell. You could have gone out, you could have gone to every business being affected, and you could have came with real numbers. You could have proved who's benefiting, who's not, and had a discussion about, is this the proper path forward? Because as councilman, I don't think you're saying, I'll always go for 7 of the 10 people, but I'm gonna leave 3 people to just get burnt in the end. Everybody's gonna get burnt by the end of the year. So that's my comment there. So that would really benefit everybody, I think, to make a good decision on that. There's kind of some confusion for me. The leasing equipment, it sounds like we might be able to get out of or not have costs to endure if we stop. I'm not sure I understand that. Somebody confirming that and clarifying that would be awesome. So let's see, another comment that was made, we have projected costs. So this year I heard a number, 33,000 or 32,000. Forgive me if I'm off by 1 or 2. That was, I think, at the beginning of this month. The lady came and said, hey, heads up, we're gonna see me asking for money. This last week it was 63,000, so that's a huge difference. One person mentioned it's got to be worth it. So with that, do we truly feel that in the next 5 years our costs are only estimated to be around 200,000? Because if we just doubled, that means we're really going to be at like 400,000, right? So let's have that discussion. Let's make sure we're making these informed decisions and not just trusting this company. So I'm not of the company, and I don't know the people here, who they work for, right? So my comments are directly to the ownership and Google information that I can find on the company. So the Park Mobile is, you'll have to forgive me, I don't know the business names, but Park Mobile's an app, right? They were, I think it's Sweden owned, right? It's a Sweden-based company. They own it. They manage it out of the East Coast. From what I'm seeing, they don't really care about Caldwell. Like, I don't know who we're comparing us to, but it can't be Boise. Boise has sports arenas, colleges with even bigger sports arenas. Like, the people going down there just are not comparable to the people visiting Caldwell. Yes, we have the rodeos, and we are enticing people to come downtown, but as was stated before, we seem to be passing the buck to the citizens instead of the business owners. So I'll reiterate, we should be asking these businesses to not ask us to cut our policies and give them exceptions. Instead, they should be trying to help us grow, whether it's water, whether that's traffic, whether that's parking. All of these things should be considered, whether it's businesses downtown or even further, just building our community. So at the point of that, I think that's all I've got. So I have a degree in cybersecurity. My major is programming, the minor's in cybersecurity. This company is hacking. It affected 21 million people. I will never use it. I'll never tell anybody they should use it. I'll actually tell you the opposite. Please don't. If somebody wants your license information and anything about you, I at least got to know you. I got to start looking in states where you live. I got to start trying to coerce the system to find that information. This company gives it to the hackers. And I expect to see another hacking from them. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, appreciate your time. So if you could please state your name for the record and your address, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Mayor Wagner and Council, thank you so much for the opportunity. Councilwoman Natalie Jangula,
16817 North Darmody Loop, Nampa, Idaho 83687, and as you know, I serve on City Council in Nampa. And I just wanted to confirm what Councilwoman Register had said in regards to Idaho statute and the RFP process. So I just wanted to say that she is correct that any time that a council is going to bind themselves to an agreement or a contract that's over $150,000, that you are required to do an RFP for that, and that the bids that come in, the lowest three, are presented to council, and council is to vote on the lowest bid of that. So I just wanted to confirm, since there was confusion in that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak this evening? Okay, well, thank you so much. We do appreciate all of you coming out. I know we heard from many, many voices. In that regard, that is a good thing. We appreciate that. It's great to get the public input in that regards. And so as of now, what we will do, and this is up to the council's prerogative, there are a number of points of discussions. Given the feedback that we've received, I think it's very obvious I don't think it was unanimous. There were some people that wanted the meters out immediately, others that did, but I think one of the most more or less unanimous is putting a pause on the meters. I think everybody would almost agree with that, to kind of reevaluate, see where thing is at. So if that is the desire of council, to take more time and look at that, we could still go through all of these that are listed on here. It's kind of your purview on that, but that was, at least in my take, kind of the assumption from everyone that was here this evening. They would like to see some more research done, putting a pause on those, whether that's, at the end of September when the new contract comes in, looking at that, getting some of the data. There is some information that we do need to get, what is the cost to the city in regards to with the meters on that, and that are currently being leased through in the car park. So I just did want to provide a few clarifications, and we'll get into council and discussion in which direction. If you want to go through all these, we're more than welcome to take the time. If you feel that the voices have been heard and that we need to put a pause on this and look at that, then we probably don't need to go through all of those. It could come back at the future city council meeting as soon as possible to look at that. What would that look like, to put a pause on those? What would be the cost to the city? And trying to learn from that and move forward and make sure that we're listening to the people. And I appreciate Councilor Williams, that your voices are heard in that regards in the decision that are made. So just a few clarifications. I know there were some questions about the company running this. So as far as the app that goes, so that is an app, and I'm not sure where they're out of. I know it's mentioned perhaps Sweden. So the car park itself is located in Boise, Idaho, is where they're headquartered. Because I know there's some questions that came up about that company in regards to that. One other thing too, as the council moves forward in the discussion, one thing is, that if it is decided to pull the meters, what is the next step? I think it's important to know what are we going to go, where are we going from here? The reason we started this down this road was because of the issues of parking downtown, because there was no parking spots downtown. And we received numerous complaints that we needed to do something to create parking spots in the downtown because there was nowhere to park. So the fear is if we do just pull them without, putting a pause, I think, is a good thing, but if we pull them, what's the next step to try to alleviate some of those issues, concerns? I know there's been talk in the past. I know Councilor Doty sent me some emails last year about providing some shuttling, things of that nature. We've actually got some money allocated to do that this year, which is great, with Destination Caldwell. Parking garage came up a lot tonight. It's not as an easy solution as it seems. Parking garages, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know, Steve, you know this quite well, is approximately $50,000 per space. So that equates to around $20 million. So it doesn't sound like a lot when you break it down in monthly increments, but it's a $20 million request to the citizens for a bond to do that. So that is a difficult task. Not that we wouldn't do it if that's what the citizens wanted, but again, you'd be asking for a $20 million bond for a parking garage. We recently did a $17 million bond for fire stations that passed by 2 votes. So it is a difficult road to hoe. We obviously don't have $20 million to build it. We would have to ask for a bond on that. So just, again, the facts of that in that case for those items. And then also, making sure we come back with the most up-to-date data. Some of the information was provided, showed, what the significant revenue was expected. That was at those first meetings that we heard. Once taking into consideration of the reduction of times and days of hours of the meters, I believe the final projection from Car Park was around a $200,000 revenue gain, and obviously we're still far from that. That's a long ways from the $600,000, but the $200,000, we're still, I agree, we're still far away from that, but it wasn't quite the number that was shown at the original case when the Car Park first came forward. After, reduction of days, times, they evaluated, and the money as well was reduced from $1.50 an hour to $1 an hour, additional free parking areas, so those numbers were adjusted on that. So just wanted to clarify a few of those things, and then again turn it over to council for, if you feel that you've heard what the people are saying, you feel that it is time to put a pause on these and to reevaluate and see where we go from here, we can do that and come forward. Or if you would like to go through each of these discussion items, it really is up to council, so I turn it over to you for your discussion and for your direction. Councilor Doty.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So a couple of things. All those are good, but who was responsible for the 90-day contract that was supposed to come back to us? Why are we skipping over that? And why is no one holding their hand up saying, I was accountable to get that 90-day contract back to us? Is that the attorney's job? Is that someone from your office? Is that you? Certainly not the council. So why didn't the 90-day contract come back? Does anyone know who was responsible to ensure that came back? And
What was in it?
And, well, I don't know. We didn't ever see it. And then that would have stopped the issue we have about the money being spent on who entered the lease agreement with Car Park without that contract in place. And I think this is the frustration from the people, is that no one wants to answer the question. So who is responsible for the 90-day contract? It wasn't me, so that's one down.
So the December hearing, was the contract not part of that when that came forward with the fees?
Wasn't it a resolution that said the 90-day?
Because it was first discussed in October, if I remember right, what was said. So would that have been part of that, Mr. Hilton, that came back in December of last year?
Right, I think and this is going to sound like excuses, and I don't mean it. I was on the team that worked with the car park. We didn't specifically assign that responsibility as between the city or the car park or among city folks.
But why didn't we? That's the problem with the city in a lot of cases, is no one wants to accept responsibility.
Well,
no one gets assigned it. I'm going to speak here. And this is exactly why we need in-house counsel, so that these things don't get missed and that they're put on a register, and so that the person is working specifically and only for the city of Caldwell, so these things don't get missed. If it was done illegally, which no one seems to want to say, or let's say it a better way, if it was done against Idaho code, then clearly, I think most people know what I did for a living, then I'm out. I'm out. If it isn't done legally and properly, then I think we should put a pause on it until it is done legally. And I was in favor of parking enforcement downtown, there is no doubt, but the way this has come about and the meters don't work, they don't take your quarters, you can't read the screens, they are a mess. It's certainly not what I was led to believe what they were going to look like. I think someone talked about aesthetics of what they were supposed to look like, or maybe a few people did. They don't look that way. They don't work half the time. I've experienced that myself in my own dealings downtown. So I'm all for a pause on the meters. I'm still in favor of some sort of parking enforcement so that we don't end up right back here, which is how we got here to begin with people parking all day downtown in front of businesses. But if you can't tell, I'm really irritated that we did not do this properly. No one stands up and says it's my fault. Whoever entered that leasing contract, if it's against state law, and no one wants to answer that question, I think it's just ridiculous that we're sitting here even doing this. And I'll end my comments there. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, ditto on what our president said. That what bothers me the most is we were told that the majority of businesses downtown were against this based on some survey that somebody did. And I've kept score on the yeses, the neutrals, and the no's, and I've yet to have one yes. And I've got 3 or 4 neutrals, and the rest are no's. So that report that we were told that the majority of businesses were in favor of parking downtown in the meters because they wanted turnover, it sure as hell didn't exist tonight, did it? So I don't know, that report, I guess, is null because it just didn't mean anything at all when it was presented to us. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Councilor Register.
Yes, I know I've already spoken quite a bit tonight, but I'm in agreement as well, and I feel like they should be paused immediately. And a lot of that has to do, obviously, with the voices that we've heard tonight, the voices we've heard on social media, the voices that we see emailing City Hall. Also, the legal part of it, we need to make sure that whatever we're doing here is legal and in compliance with code. And I'm also wanted to just say one thing. I watched that October 17th meeting like 16 times, and in there, we had already adjusted the times, the $1 an hour, changed the free days and all that kind of stuff. So all that was in consideration in that 613,000 number, unless we just never got an updated number. But we actually brought that up in the meeting, and you should probably go back and watch it. But we did bring it up that this takes into consideration these changes, these free days, the $1 an hour, and we were told that it did. But like so many of you, I haven't been in Caldwell as long as all of you have, but there was something very special about this community that drew us here, and I loved coming downtown, and I loved seeing the architecture, and I loved the history. In fact, I heard a story one time, I don't know who can confirm this or not, that there used to be something underneath the downtown or something that you could, maybe you know, right? And I always thought, when I first came here, they do tours in Portland or San Francisco or someplace where they do have an underground city. Seattle. And I always thought, Caldwell should do that. We should have these underground tours and, all this kind of stuff because it's so charming. And then you add in the Winter Wonderland, and it's like this Hallmark movie, right? And in the middle of it, we put these great big huge beasts of parking meters where we had to do something, because I agree there's a parking issue. I mean, there just is. But had we done some kind of meter that had the aesthetics, and we had the businesses coming in, and you guys were for it, and everybody, and then you sold it to your customers, and we had this communication, maybe it wouldn't have gone the way that it did. Maybe if we only metered the core of the downtown and left the rest of it free, so you could park on the side streets and walk in, and you had premium parking that you were sort of being held accountable for, but the other areas were still free, so you could get your hair done and have a dinner and a movie and a long coffee or a visit or a walk or go see the lights, whatever it is. But I also, when you brought up the trolley thing, I looked it up, and I could see the Caldwell trolley. I don't know if we can do one with all the wires, but how charming would it be if we had those lots where the employees parked, let's just say, just to clear that out, okay? Because I think that might be part of the problem. But if the employees parked in one of those lots and we had the old-time trolley that was running around and picking them up and taking them to wherever their block was, you know what I mean? There's so many things that we could do that are inventive and unique to our city that people would come just to ride the trolley, you know what I mean? And so I think we can do this, we just have to come together and do it. So I'm in favor also of putting it on pause, figuring it all out. I think as a community, we can either get our own meters, figure out another parking enforcement thing, we can have a community committee with business owners, with community members, with council, whoever it is, and we can do this right, and we can go back to being on the path that we were on, which was great, and then get out of this, whatever we're in right now.
Okay. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So much really to say. Let me keep it brief if I can. If you go back to my comments the night that I did vote no, my comments on the record were this was rushed. And I still feel like it was rushed. I've said before, and I'll say again, I'm voting no on anything where I feel like we're being rushed, or we don't have all the information, or I feel like I might need more information, and I stand by that no vote that night. My wife and I were down here Friday night for dinner and a movie. I'm not against paying for the meters when I'm down here, but I couldn't, because you have to move your car. You can't stay in that zone for more than 3 hours. The meters are hideous. They're difficult. You shouldn't have to figure out a parking meter. I've heard people say, well, I can figure it out. It's a parking meter. You shouldn't have to figure it out. The implementation was wrong. The product is wrong. The timing is wrong. I said back when we did this, we're in a slump in the economy. This is the wrong time to do this. I stand by that comment. Once this council approved those, I was going along with the process. So yes, I did vote in agreement with with this council once it was approved, because at that point you have to move forward. But now that we're at this point, I stand in solidarity with the councilmen that have already spoken. This has all kinds of inherent problems with it, and perhaps the biggest of which are legal questions, and I think we need to take a big step backwards and figure this out. And so if there's even a possibility of pausing it at this time, I'd be in favor of that. In full disclosure, because of timing and schedules and holidays and moving our council meetings, I won't be here at the next council meeting. And so there's a lot of movement going on in the next couple of weeks with council, and I know we said no decision would be made tonight, but I'm not happy with where we're at right now.
Thank you, appreciate those comments. Counselor Allgood.
I'm not going to beat a dead horse or repeat everything that was said, but I'm definitely for, until we get this contract figured out, I'm definitely for stopping before we go any further.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. So with that, it's...
Why
oh.
can't we vote on it tonight?
So we cannot, because it has to be noticed as an action item. This was for discussion on that, so we do need to properly notice it. Now, I know that you're gone the second meeting, Councilor Williams is gone the first meeting. We can do another special city council meeting to do that. We do have to, we'd want to get with our city clerk, with all of you, to see what your schedules are. We can do that sooner than later on that, but we do have to do proper notice in the paper, things like that. That's state code to ensure on those things, but we can definitely look at that and do that as quickly as possible. But I don't want to put her on the spot right now to have to do that, but we could find that information out by tomorrow for you and let you know what those dates are to come back to council. Councilor Allgood?
I was just going to make sure everybody in the audience knows that next council meeting won't be till the 4th because of the holiday. So we're pushed back 2 days. It won't be on the Monday as we normally are because that's Labor Day. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware that it's not as soon as it would normally be.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If it's just that vote, I'm sure that people can call in if that's the only item, right? So I mean, even if they're gone or away versus a full meeting, if that's just what it's about, unless they're in the air, of course, I'm sure that we can figure that out.
Yeah, so yeah, we could definitely do that in that regards. And I don't know if I don't think it's possible to do like an executive order to put those to halt, because it is an ordinance, if I'm not mistaken, as far as the timing, time of the meters, things of that nature. So it would need to be council action and not just an executive order from the mayor. Is that correct, Mark, on that?
Yeah,
Does
that's
that make
correct.
sense?
You're going to need an ordinance, and we can prepare that as quickly as you can have a special meeting.
Okay, so yeah, we will definitely look into that first thing in the morning, figure out some schedules. And again, like Councilor Doty said, it would be it seems like it's pretty unanimous amongst the council on that, so it would be a pretty short and brief meeting, and not that we don't want to include all of you. That's why we had this meeting tonight, but definitely would be a meeting, even if the majority of the council members had to attend via Zoom or phone call or whatever it is, we could do that as soon as possible. Did you have an additional comment?
I think the audience will be fine if we do that by phone. I'm pretty sure at least all of that are remaining. I would like to see the 4-hour come into effect at some point still, so that we have something in place, whether we figure out who's going to enforce that, when they're going to enforce that, and all of that, just so that we have something in place. Doesn't have to be on that phone call, reverting back to our old ways until we can get either a group or whatever direction we're going to go to help figure this out, but we still need something in place.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, so then with that, we will, unless I hear something different, we'll bypass reviewing each and every one of these, and we'll be coming back in the very near future. We will get together, like I said, in the morning and make an announcement. We'll put that out to the public as soon as we know those dates and times, so you're aware of that, to put a pause on the meters and have future discussion of what is the best path forward from that, but to get it back to make sure that people know that their voices are heard. We appreciate the time that was taken tonight. I know a lot of you spend time away from your family. I think some of the people that were signed up that had to leave probably to go to work in that regards in the downtown, so we appreciate them doing that. Yes, Councilor?
Yeah, forgive me, Mr. Mayor, I know we're trying to wrap up, but I think it's important to say a lot of people, I'm thinking of Stephen, I'm thinking of Mr. Hilty, have put a lot of time into this, and those of you that are still here with us and anybody listening, there's nothing personal about what we do up here. This is business. To make it personal is really unfortunate. And there's so much that could be said, but this council up here and the people that work for this city have the best interests of this city at heart. There isn't a nefarious or ill will in anybody that has worked on this. And so I want to be sure we appreciate the long, hard work, even though what we're doing right now seems like perhaps a sting to some people that have invested a lot of time and work and effort into this. And I know that we've heard you. We have. But I want to be sure our staff knows they're appreciated, because you've taken some beatings tonight, and I apologize for that, because that's not what you're here for. And this staff has worked hard, and in spite of this council's decision at this time, I want them to know they're appreciated.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Just to piggyback off of what Councilor Williams is saying, when I started looking into this and sending out emails, there was a lot. I had a lot of questions, and it was a lot. And I agree that the city clerk, finance, economic development answered so many of my questions, and I was probably not very nice during some of this, and I apologize for that, but they really did do the best that they could to answer the questions, which is where all this information came from. So I do appreciate your communication with that, and also that you guys did work really hard on this, but there is a time and a place where everybody, including city government, can step back and say, maybe we made a mistake and now we have to fix it for the community, and that's what I think we're trying to do here. So bear with us as we figure out what the next plan is, but it sounds like, or at least I hope you know that your council has heard you and they're going to move forward with what we've heard here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that? So, yes, appreciate everyone this evening, all of those that did avoid personal attacks, things of that nature. We do appreciate that, as that does not help anybody as we move forward in this. And so I believe there was some very productive dialogue this evening. And so with that, we will be here back in the near future with some finalization of that. But for this evening, we thus stand adjourned.